Hey man, we're back in studio. My name is Gunner. This is the Chat with Gunner podcast. And I'm in studio with a logistics professional in Chattanooga, something we haven't done yet, but I'm pretty excited to do it. Jake Battles. What up, brother?
Thank you for having me, Gunner.
AKA DJ Jake Battles.
DJ Busy Bama on the ones and twos, ladies and gentlemen.
Is that what it was?
That is
DJ.
That was a name that was given to me.
Oh, you still do it?
I do still do it.
So you got that voice, man. You got that radio voice.
I try.
So you used to do the Monster Jam thing too. That was pretty sweet.
I did. But Monster Jam, kid seats just $5.
I wish Ethan, I needed that voice. It would be all right with that voice, right? Yeah, maybe. Well, hey man, I just want to say thanks for coming in. Be a little bit different podcast for us today. Usually we get up here, we have a little bit of fun. We talk about a bunch of trends. We crack jokes. We say things that try to get canceled.
Amen.
I mean, that's pretty much. We had an episode called "Cancel Us," and we didn't get canceled, so that was a good thing. And then the next day, I
keep trying.
I will probably get canceled eventually. Now, if Elon buys YouTube, we'll be okay. But other than that, probably get canceled. But we're going to talk some logistics, talk some freight, talk some supply chain. But let's just give everybody a little background. They've heard me ramble on for years. How'd you get started in it? Where'd you start?
So, long story short, I moved to Chattanooga in late 2013. In 2014, I was just going around trying to start over. I had a background in everything from service industry. I sold insurance out of college. I worked in the bar, nightlife, restaurant, and my dad moved here. He got a job here. I'd driven through it my whole life. I grew up in North Carolina. All my extended family was in Alabama, so I knew the Ridge Cut before everyone else who's moved here knew the Ridge Cut. And so I was like, you know what, I'll give it a shot. And so I was looking at different opportunities, and I actually just walked into Aerotech after interviews, LinkedIn, yada, yada.
Right.
And I had my resume, and this lady named Madeline, I can't believe I still remember her name, but she was like, I've got a couple opportunities. She took me to meet Coyote back when they were still booming.
What year is this?
This would have been 2014.
Okay.
And went there, and then she took me to Covenant Transport, and so went into Covenant. They were interviewing me for a fleet manager position, and I kind of had my heart set on sales. I'd done sales in the past. That was what I was looking for. And I told them, I said, I've got an offer from Coyote. I think I'll do that. And they said, wait. We've got a brokerage department. Why don't you come and talk to that division? And I did. And a lady named Rachel interviewed me, and it went really well. And I started as a temp, worked my way through, and eventually I worked for Covenant for about 8 years until recently. Did everything from just your carrier rep, then customer rep, did project management for them. They'd ship me around the country to manage different projects. And then I went from that. I helped start a fuel card program for them, built it with the factoring company, put the pricing in place, had a sales team. We were selling fuel discounts, baby. Nothing more exciting to talk to a trucker about than fuel discounts. Then that kind of graduated into what they called carrier services, where I did equipment leasing. I talked to basically a lead generation kind of funnel from equipment leasing, factoring, fuel cards. Did that for a few years, and then I got picked up by the factoring company full-time as their business development director. Held that position until it sold in the summer of 2020 to Triumph Business Capital. At that point, I got picked up by the equipment leasing division and worked there up until the beginning of this year, where Repower lured me away. And I had a great time at Covenant. I learned a lot. I made a lot of connections. I grew a lot as a professional and personally, and they were really good to me. And I continue to like working with those guys. And I maintain a lot of relationships, and it's just crazy how many people have come through Covenant that have now kind of branched off. And when you work in logistics, it's all about relationships, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's crazy to see in Chattanooga and even across the country people that have spread out, and you remember each other. It's like being in the trenches, like if you go through a peak season with e-commerce and you're just no sleep, screaming, just trying to figure it out. Those relationships, they cut a little deeper and they mean a little bit more when that you can work through it. So that is my elevator spiel about how I got into logistics.
Well, that's cool, man. So background, about me. So 2014, I got into logistics as well. I started at Lipsy, right out of college. That was the only job that would give me a chance. I tried to go to Access, had no I had no clue what logistics was. Zero clue.
Right.
So Ted got me an opportunity to go to Access because he owned it. So
right. Yeah.
I go in there and talk to
helps.
one of his guys. Right. Now I didn't even know that. Like I just thought he was helping me out.
Hey, bud.
Go in there, do an interview. Never hear anything back. And I'm like, okay, well that sucks. Whatever that is. Not even knowing what the opportunity could have been if I would have gotten that. No
kidding.
You know. And then ended up selling cars for like a couple months. Hated that.
Yeah, that's
sold
tough.
a couple though, so that's but
learn a
hated that, and then started up at a nutrition store, and then found logistics. Got into logistics 2014, track and trace, and then appointment setting, and then a little bit of customer service, and then pretty much been to brokering, and then I became the tracking manager, and then into procurement, and then into pricing, and then I started into sales, and then that's when I moved over to 12 Point.
So I worked with Jake and Jordan.
Great guys.
Briefly at Covenant. So when I transferred up and was working in the carrier services fuel card division, they when we had peak season, I'd done it so long, they kind of like nudged my boss and was like, hey, can Jake come back down here for a few months and just help us out since he's done this? And my boss was like, sure. So I left logistics, went into B2B sales, and they lured me back. But that's when I met Jake and Jordan, great guys, and it's been a ride. But I knew I think you knew Nick Zoenis. I think he was there at the same time. Yeah. So I remember when he got sent to North Carolina to live in an RV for like 3 months for FEMA stuff.
So I was about to say, you know what it's like to get pulled in different directions when peak season gets here. Well, peak season at Lipsy was when the hurricanes hit, which is usually about 4 months prior to peak season in general. So
you take all the trailers.
So what they would do is there would be about, at that time, I don't know what to do now. I think it's the same thing. But, you take 12 to 15 to 18 to 20 rock stars of the company, throw them into one room and say, hey, guys, get here at 7:30. We'll tell you when you can leave, and we're going to work every day until this is done because we never know when FEMA is going to turn us on. And there'll be days that we'd sit there from 7:30 to 8 p.m. at night twiddling our thumbs, pissed off at the world because we can't go anywhere. And then 8:30, we need 600 trucks in there by tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. And now we're working until 4 o'clock and then back up there early again. So at that time, I was doing sales and stuff, so I'd always get pulled into that. And then as soon as that was over, through my tracking background, they would put me at nighttime as like the night manager on USPS, Amazon, UPS. So I was having to deal with that stuff. So I was pretty much busy from June to January.
Right.
All the time, didn't know really what I was doing. So logistics can be crazy. People don't understand. Like, unless you're in it, you don't really understand.
And I don't think anybody really knows what they're getting into. I can remember my entire high school, college career. I had a friend in college who was from New Jersey, and her brother came to visit, and he was a couple years younger, and he was going to a school in New York. And I asked him, I said, what are you studying? He goes, supply chain management. I was a senior in college, first time I'd ever heard about it, ever. And I was like warehousing and trucks, and he was like, yeah. And I was like, that's odd. Why would you want to get into that? He goes, well, their family owned like all kind of different retail stores and shopping centers in New Jersey, and like he'd been around it from a very young age, and so he knew way before I did. And I just keep going back to that moment in my head, like, man, I bet I sounded like the biggest asshole. It's like, it's just trucks, man.
Yeah, but I mean, think about it. It's logistics. It is just trucks. Like, what is legit? Like, I didn't know. I had no. Like, how do you go 22 years and never even understood the word?
No, I thought literally that there was a warehouse, and all these trucks just went to this like one warehouse, and then they would deliver them directly to the stores. No idea about how it got here, how it got off a boat, how it got drayed, how many cross docks, how many warehouses, how many hands had to touch it before it got to the shelves. It's bananas. So I like to ask this question, and I'll ask it here a little bit. Well, I'll ask it right now. But like, what's your first memory? I love that question, right? But anyways, that's not the question. This is going back to, so when I was 22, I don't think I ever even thought about anything shipping. No.
Like, I don't even think I just thought things appeared. Like you say, money grows on a tree. I just thought things just popped up. Like, you just wanted, like, it was just kind of regional.
Magic.
Yeah. Never even thought about it.
No.
Then you get into it and you're like, I'm still learning, and we're almost 10 years into this, and I still feel like I have no clue what I'm doing, but I know much more than I did when I started.
Yes.
Obviously.
It just builds and builds and builds. There's so many levels, and there's so much depth. And, I think the biggest thing when you get into logistics is you can start in so many different places. You can start driving a forklift or a warehouse. You can start literally track and trace doing operations for a 3PL or an asset-based company. You can start in drayage. You can start at the ports. You can start at the airport. I mean, it's just a endless opportunities to get into logistics. And I think Chattanooga is unique in that way. I think people, obviously, you have your Chicagos, your freight hubs, and Northwest Arkansas. Everybody knows about logistics because like 1 in 11 people in the state of Arkansas that's not employed by the state, it works in logistics.
Right.
And so, but in Chattanooga in particular, I think the city and the media, FreightWaves helps a lot with this. But I think there are more people that know about opportunities in logistics now, exponentially more than in the last 5 years.
Yeah, and if you look at, I guess, the articles, the boom happened in 2013. So
there you go.
So there's the reason why I guess we're in it.
Yeah, here we are.
So I guess it makes sense that we never really heard about it. But like we were at together, the UTC is trying to put together a freight broker program.
What did we say they need to change the name to? It was like Logistics Coordinator University or something, because we were like, man, if you talk to anybody who's been in the seat of a truck, there is no worse word than they like to hear than a broker.
I know, and I don't understand. I mean, I can see where they're coming from, but what's the difference in that and a dispatcher?
So, isn't that the $1 million question? I guess it depends on how many MCs you have at your disposal is the biggest difference. But,
right.
What I used to tell people when I started as a freight broker was that I was like an air traffic controller for trucks, right? Like you have just a 40,000 foot view of your customer's portfolio, your portfolio, everything that's going on. And if you work with an asset-based carrier like a large one like Covenant or U.S. Express, the world becomes very small, and it becomes very fathomable. Like when you're talking about freight going from Hermiston, Oregon to Dallas, or everything just kind of what for most people they would never think about what Western Oregon looks like, or Eastern Oregon for that matter. And then you get into logistics, and all of a sudden, like, just the map of the United States just gets ingrained in your brain. You see it when you sleep.
Well, think about, we see the map every day. Not everyone, unless you're a history teacher, most likely, or is looking at a map every day, right? So, and because you look at your phone, you see where you're going, makes it real small. But you're right. I've never thought about it like that. You're right. The world is so small when you look at logistics, because every day we're looking at the map. Like, the world seems like going to across the Pacific's like looking like going to Alabama to me, because I'm like, well, Alabama to Tennessee is this on the map, because I look at it every day. And this over here is just that. So I mean, that's not too bad either.
And then you start thinking, like, I used to run temperature controlled freight out of California to all around the country, and so like it's still with me today. I'm like, Central California to Tennessee or to Memphis is like 2,150 miles, or Shelbyville's like 22, and then Monroe, Georgia is like 2,450, and then you get into, it was all Walmart lanes. I did it with a buddy of mine, Brad, for years, and that stuff just gets engraved in your brain, and you just forget about it, and then it's just always there. Like the mileage, it just sticks with you. It doesn't leave. It
doesn't, man. These random like city names and stuff. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. It's different. Now, you sent me an email and some talking points. We never. I always tell Ethan, hey man, we need talking points, and then we talk about something random, and I start ranting.
Old school. Wrote it down with a pad.
There you go. But I got it right here. First of all, hey, cheers.
Cheers.
Cinco de Mayo.
Cinco de Mayo.
Modelo. What is this? The Fighting Spirit official beer of the UFC, and now the unofficial beer of the CHATT WITH GUNNER podcast.
There it is. Cheers.
I think that might be the first beer I've had on the show.
So I didn't know how this was going to go. I had this like internal debate about how serious is this, and like I know it's not that serious, but when you take videos of stuff and you put it on the internet, alcohol is always kind of like, I don't know. But I was like, if it wasn't Cinco de Mayo, I probably wouldn't have brought it.
So are you into podcasts? Are you a podcast guy?
I like podcasts. My wife and I have listened to a bunch of true crime podcasts, but personally, I like sales podcasts. I like just unique podcasts. I've been listening to How I Built This, the Morning Brew.
Okay.
Where they talk to different entrepreneurs about, I'm listening to one that I'm trying to get through right now about the founder of Raising Cane's.
Okay.
And he talks about he had this obsessive vision about chicken fingers when he was in college at UGA. And I was like, man, that is just, what's wild to me about entrepreneurship and podcasts have brought this to light for me is just sometimes they get that bug in their ear, and they can't sleep, they can't do it. It's like they just get obsessed about it, and I love that shit.
Yeah,
I love it, and I like podcasts. I was telling you, I have always wanted to do one of these, so thank you for having me on. I think it's really neat to get to experience something new, and I really, kudos to Dumpster Fire Studios for having us over here. It's top-notch stuff. It's really cool to see the behind the scenes. So
it is, man. I'm telling you, there needs to be. I need to do like a behind the scenes just from this channel too, because people do not understand.
No,
every time somebody like Stephen Hargis comes from the Times Free Press, he's like, "Dude, what is this place?" I'm like, "I'm telling you, people don't understand."
Out here in the cut.
That's right, man. Out here,
don't want anybody to know.
Out here,
knocking the door down.
Out here at the Move, man. So, backside of the mall, you never know. You never know what happens. But whenever you give directions, you go, "Hey, man, it's the Gateway Antique Mall, and it's in the back." It's like,
yeah,
am I getting catfished or?
Well, I walked in here and I was like, "All right, so let's look at your surroundings." I was like, "So what are we working with around here?"
Meth clinic, church, bingo.
Bingo. I mean, somebody's having a good time and someone is having a terrible time, and they're in the same room together.
Sure. And then one person is definitely not praying for him because he was hooking up with one of the moms at the thing, like a divorcee or something.
Oh, praise be.
Yeah, can't. It was in the Lord's plan, I guess, in his life. But anyways, we got a little bit of a play here. We got some things we need to talk about, and if I don't stay on topic, I will get off topic. I do it all the time. How much time you got? You kind of free?
I am limitless.
Oh,
the limit does not exist.
One of my favorite movies of all time.
There you go.
So you like that movie?
I love that movie.
I do too. So if you don't know this is what happens. If you don't know my backstory,
we don't have to stick to this.
Yeah.
I didn't know how this was going to go, so I was like, well, let me just jot down a couple things that we can kind of refer back to. But I'm happy to sit here and chew the fat. So.
Sure. Okay. Well, hey, let's do it. The first episode ever of this podcast is about my addiction to Adderall.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So. You obviously can go back and listen to it, but long story short, I was taking it in college mainly to stay awake during classes and to pay attention at night and to get through practice. It was, it was a lot. People don't understand that either. Football's really hard in college. Not the football. Football's easy. Football is like recess.
Just all the other stuff.
Study hall, training room, workouts, practice.
Yeah, especially D1 football. I played baseball at a D3 school, and it had its challenges, but it wasn't. I can't imagine.
But even baseball, like the schedule's so long, so you're always in a bus, you're always traveling, and that's a lot of time that you got to study on the bus. Like that. Yeah, that's miserable.
And then you got your homies back here trying to freestyle rap in the back of the bus.
Yeah.
And one of them's trying to FaceTime their girlfriend going through the mountains, and it's chaos. And so I didn't take Adderall in college until the latter part of college, but and that was after I was done playing baseball. But my friends and I have always joked. I was like, man, a baseball would look like the size of a watermelon if you were taking Adderall playing baseball.
Yeah, so I was taking it. Okay, I was taking it in college, like to study and practice.
The correct way.
I would never take it before a game, right? Well, let's see. It was my junior year, and I was about to get drug tested by the team. Oof. So for team drug test, NCAA drug test. So for NCAA drug test, you get a 1-day notice, like practice type 1-day notice, right? So I was like,
it was on the banned substance list.
Oh yeah.
Okay. I mean, if
it shows up as meth, big guy.
I know. Well, that makes sense to me, but it's like it's a prescribed medication. But I'm sure you could.
Oh no! See, hang on.
All right,
I'm about to ruin my eligibility here. So literally, my family doctor was very family doctor. Me and my mom, boom, go to the doctor. Hey, he needs Adderall. Okay, well, there's a bunch of stuff that has to happen. Well, you had to know what has to happen is he needs it today.
Oh boy.
And it's like, what do you need it for? I'm having trouble staying awake during class. Are you falling asleep early? Yeah, sometimes I just can't keep my eyes open. Okay. Boom. Wrote, boom. Failed the drug test. Prescription, boom. Passed.
Man, that a boy.
On with it.
Resourceful. Man, you had a career in logistics from the get-go.
But, right? That was a short window. But what happened was those were 10s, and I was taking them, once or twice whenever I needed them. And I was like, oh, these are good for practice. Like I'm like, honestly, it took me a while to figure out the playbook and understanding the defense when I got to that level because Eastridge prepared me zero for that. But so like I was okay. I was starting to unpack like what we were been doing. Like I'm starting to see it now, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, okay. And now I'm starting to perform better at practice.
So limitless, just
dude. First game I ever played on Adderall. We was playing App State. We was playing App State at home.
Love that stadium. Boone is a great place.
Okay, at our home. Sorry, but
sorry.
But this is my junior year. We finished there. But like so, App State at home or at our home at Findlay, and I took one before the game, just 10 milligram before the game. First of all, my heart's racing. I used to do like 5-hour energies, much more than that. So it was crazy. Well, what was wild? So we used to run just a regular base defense, 4-3. We'd have a Sam, a Mike, and a Will. I played Will at this time. So at this point, we started throwing in a little bit of a nickel package because everybody's going spread.
Right.
Now
spread
every
out.
defense is 4-2-5 for the most part. So when we'd go nickel as a Will, the Will comes off the field and we bring in another defensive back. Now later on, I stayed on the field as that. We just left me on the field.
Just
we changed
a little
my position.
hybrid thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but during that time, we was kind of figuring it out. So I only had probably, let's just say 30 snaps in the game, which is about half of what I was used to. We'd usually go 65 to 70 snaps in a full football game. Dude, 30 snaps, I'm pretty sure it's less than that. 30 snaps, 9 tackles, 3 tackles for loss.
Attaboy.
I'm talking like saw everything perfect. So then I'm going,
oh boy,
this is about to be it. I'm about to be an All-American. Next game also pretty good, but then like eventually it just kind of wore off. It became me. I was just normal again.
Right.
You know? So then it was like 20 milligrams, 30 milligrams, extended release. So that's how that whole game started, and then I had to finally kick them in 2020.
Well, it was when I got later in college, they were more readily available, and my junior and senior year, you would use them to study and things like that. And I can remember late nights of studying where you sit down, you're gonna study, you take an Adderall. And, next thing you know, a bunch of your friends are in there going to study as well. And you look down, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. You're like, I haven't started. I hadn't written a word down on this piece of paper on this computer. And I can remember walking back to my house in college, birds chirping. And I was like, this is amazing. I love this.
Okay, so it's not just me.
No, it's not. But I agree.
Man.
Like, it's definitely, as I've gotten older, and I'm in my mid-30s now, and I can, I can absolutely see how, like, that will take over your life. And people who've been on Adderall since they were, 10 or Ritalin, or when I was in school, it was always the kids who had to go sneak off on the way back from the lunchroom to go to the office to take their medicine, and then they'd come in late, and everyone's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing in there?"
Yeah.
But no, it's wild. I can definitely see how that happens, and to come back all the way to like Limitless, and it just everything comes clear.
There was nothing. I always say cooler when I'm being dumb, like with a K. Nothing more cooler than watching The Wolf of Wall Street and Limitless on Adderall.
Yeah.
That just, it's just like, oh, this movie makes so much sense. And then what do you want to do when you're on Adderall? You want to start a business. You want to, it's like legalized cocaine, right?
Oh,
you got so many business ideas, so many plans. And here was my problem in school. My notes, fire. My notes were
I bet.
awesome. I'm talking about the best notes ever. And then it's time to go study with all the boys. Let's go study. We're all going to get together and study in the study room. And now I'm breaking down wrestling film of like how I want to do future matches when I grow up. And then I never get to the studying.
So my buddy of mine in town, his name's Rob Bentley, he took me to my first ever WWE match at
McKenzie?
At McKenzie. And this would have been... So, okay, this will make sense to you. I can't remember the date, but I'm going to tell you what happened, and you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about.
Probably their front row.
So, the first night we were supposed to go was the night the water main blew up in Chattanooga, and everybody lost water, right? And so they had to cancel the wrestling match or the show. And so, he and I were all pumped up. We had made these plans. It was before he or I had children, so it's been a while ago. But I remember he took me, and it was an absolutely amazing experience. Like, you're drinking beers. We were like making dollar bets on who was going to win without knowing anything. Like going to a drag race or something where you're just like, I got $1 on this guy.
Because you didn't keep up with it.
No, I didn't keep up with it, but it was still just such a spectacle, and it was so much fun to go see. We had a blast. We had an absolute blast. So I can just the showmanship of it all, and the PA and the noise and the people are electric, and I'm just like, man, this is wild to see in person. It's it's like NASCAR, right? Like, I never enjoyed watching NASCAR on TV ever.
Bristol's sweet.
Yes, I've been to Martinsville and I've been to Bristol, and Bristol is a blast. I grew up in North Carolina, so I never went to Charlotte. I know the Coca-Cola 500 or the Coca-Cola 600 is just awesome, and but No, yeah, Bristol was a good time. There's an Adderall story for you. You ready?
Yep, let's do it.
So I was a DJ in college,
Mm-hmm.
right, and still do on and off and stuff. And so one night I was DJing a sorority formal, and the next on a Saturday night in Lynchburg, Virginia, where I went to school. And the next morning I had my cousin from Alabama and my uncle were in their RV at Bristol.
Okay.
And they were like, hey, we've got tickets for you. Why don't you meet us here for the race? And I was like, doesn't the race start at like noon? They're like, yeah. And I was like, shit. So I DJ'd this formal, borrowed an Adderall from a buddy. After it got done at 2 o'clock in the morning, I hopped in the car and drove from Lynchburg, Virginia to Bristol, Tennessee. It's about a 4-hour drive.
No problem.
Rolled up. I remember I passed somebody driving the wrong way on I-81 coming at me as I was going that way.
But you were focused. There's no way you'd have hit him.
Swerve. No. Could have been hallucinating. Definitely not. It was like a mid-90s teal Camaro. You know the one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
But anyway, got there, rolled into this campground. Never been to like a NASCAR race at this time before. It's just madness. Roll into the campground, pull up, sleep for like an hour. They're all getting up, like hungover, making bacon, and I'm like, let me just rest. But we went, and it's like a carnival for adults. I mean, if you like smokeless tobacco, this is your joint. I mean, there's tents everywhere. There's beer everywhere. And you can take a cooler in with you. Are you kidding me? They let you bring in your own beer. That first time I saw that, I was just like, and it's so much louder. It is so loud in person.
You cannot talk to anybody.
No.
Like the people you're next to, you might as well just take some headphones and just be ready to just talk to nobody and just enjoy the race because you can't hear anything.
You can't hear anything, and people sit down. Yeah. So the older I get, the more I appreciate events that I go to where people sit.
Yep.
Concerts, things like that, big music festivals. I am now too old and too fat and too tired to stand on my feet for 6 hours for no reason.
Yeah, so I used to do security in college. That was how we got paid. A company called Access Security out of Johnson City. So they had all the.
They're still around.
Yeah, they have all the theaters around here, and they do pretty much everything in Knoxville and Johnson City, and they always do Bonnaroo. So I don't mind a concert. No problem. Got to be there an hour before, an hour after. No problem. Bonnaroo, dude. I would never go as a fan. People want me to go. I'm like, no, I will never will I ever go back inside those grounds. I guess I can't say never, but I'm not planning on it because I worked that for 5 years.
Oh my goodness,
dude! 5 years in the summer. We had to get there 2 days before it started. Say 2 days after it was over, and every single day was 18-hour shifts, standing up. I mean, you would try to sit down when you could, but mainly standing up. There's so many. My buddy Sinjin, he does security full time now. Like he was a big offensive lineman, 6'5", 300 pounds. Now he's like, in pretty good shape, probably 260.
I was going to say, I feel like offensive linemen either blow up or they cut way down, and there's not a lot of in between.
Well, he didn't cut way down, but he's like in great shape for where he was. He was a big old offensive lineman. Now he's like a very scary security guy.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, and dude, so he got the bug, got into it, but he's got so many stories of me from security of me falling asleep and him watching me while I'm asleep. And
oh goodness,
because I'd be good. Like you give me an Adderall, dude, I'll do security for 2-3 days.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm out of Adderall. I ain't securitizing nothing.
Nothing. No shot. No shot. So, I forgot. I was going to try to lead us somewhere and blanked, so I'm going to let you.
Well, we can go. We can jump into some sales right now. I like to talk sales and I also like to talk pro wrestling. So, and here's why. And most people will never make this comparison. And one of these days, I'm probably going to write a book about this, about how it's so similar. Like pro wrestling and sales on the independent level is so similar in all the characteristics because it's pro wrestling on the independent level is just literally you're a small business. It's promoting, it's marketing,
selling
it's
yourself.
Branding, selling yourself. And you have to get an emotion out of somebody in that crowd if you're good, right? So you got to get an emotion out of somebody, whether it's bad or good, and you got to tell them how to feel by your body language and by your tonality. So tell me one other way to persuade somebody other than that. Like that is sales.
That is sales. I mean, so when I was in undergrad, my major was interpersonal communication and public speaking. And so I loved studying about body language and tone and enunciation and pauses and how to public speak. And in school, you could, for some of my comm classes, you could either write a paper or you could do a speech.
Yeah.
And I would always pick the speech. Always. But they're like, get your bullet points on your flashcards. I'm like, no, man, you don't need that. You don't need that. You just gotta be able to connect thoughts together in real time. And people get so nervous. They get so nervous about public speaking, and still to this day. And I can get how it can be intimidating, but anything you do on the public stage, you can then bring that back to one-on-one. You can talk. You can learn how to basically morph public address speaking into individual sales, or and even boardroom sales, or you to a group and things like that. But no, I completely see how wrestling, especially on the independent circuit, about how to try to generate curiosity and energy and passion from people who do not give a shit about what you're trying to do.
Yep. I
mean, you have to elicit an emotion for just a random person it's a lot.
Because I mean, it's not like your WWE. I mean, obviously, some people go. I don't want to say it this way. Like a lower clientele usually shows up at these shows because it's very price friendly.
So like a flea market situation.
Yeah, like that's there. Yes, that's the crowd, right? That's the crowd. It's sprinkled in a little bit more with some hipsters now. There's some hipsters into it. Wrestling's becoming cool again, right?
Like it's because the mullets are back, bro.
Right. So they got competition. There's a company called AEW. So there's another billionaire in town has bought AEW, the Khan family who owns the Jaguars. So they're actually paying guys well, which means they're getting stars. They're on TNT, kind of like WWF,
I remember
WCW.
Seeing this.
Yeah. So there's a little competition now, and now it's cool again.
Well, competition breeds progress, right?
Sure. No, it's cool again. So people are coming to the shows. And I was wrestling at a time when, I mean, there'd be sometimes 20, 30 people show up, and I'm performing as hard as I am if there's 1,000 people there.
Yeah.
Like you have to perform even harder when there's less people. The ones that sucked would phone it in with 20 people. Go like, oh, there's only 20 people here. I ain't doing that hard stuff. I'm like, dude, those 20 people are about to go tell somebody that I'm the one that did the hard stuff.
So this is how it is to DJ weddings. Okay. So DJing a dry wedding or an event of any kind without alcohol is a unique challenge. Because it's the same situation. How do you get people entertained and intrigued and tap into that memory bank of good times that used to be there without a little liquid courage, right?
Yeah.
And so I can remember DJing weddings. I DJ'd a Mennonite wedding.
A midnight wedding?
Mennonite.
What is that?
It's like Amish light.
Okay.
So they utilize Mennonites, and this is going to be on the internet, so I'm sure going to get roasted for this. But Mennonites, I was in, was it Harrisburg? Man, it's escaping. I was in Virginia, where JMU is, and I'll look this up later, and it's going to drive me crazy. But I had some friends, and they were marrying into a Mennonite family, and they like horse and buggies. The wedding itself, they had real china. It's like for 300 people. There were like 100 horses and buggies there. There were some cars, and there was like different levels, and they were this big farming community. Super nice people, absolutely great people, and they had a great time. But you would think that would be like a dry wedding. No, absolutely not. They had a blast. Best moonshine I've ever had. Swear, like just an absolute hoot and a half. And but then I've done Sweet 16 parties and dry weddings, and whether it be by choice or whether it be because it's a Sunday afternoon or these things, and you have to try harder to become memorable and to help people help themselves have a good time.
Sure.
And so it is interesting how if you take DJing or performing and you have your wrestling and performing, and how once again we circle back and we get to logistics. And I think we talked about this on our initial phone call about where do you find good talent to get people in logistics that aren't already in logistics. And I know we both had some thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think a lot of people would, well, I don't know if a lot of people would say, but the bar is a great place. Now, that doesn't mean that every bartender you go out there should be in logistics, right?
No.
But I do believe that type of personality that makes a great bartender would make a really good logistics professional as well, if they can hone in and learn the craft. Because logistics is not something you can just pretend to know. You can't just like get on the phone with the driver and start talking in a way that he's going to call you out on your bluff and be like, this kid's full of shit.
Right.
And they will do that. And you can't call a customer and say something to where they're going to say, well, why would I give this guy my freight? He just said this, and that doesn't even have anything to do with logistics.
No.
So there's some common ground there, but of course you got to fail your way to learning.
Right.
But I always tell everybody the best way to learn logistics, and maybe I'm wrong, that is because I did it, track and trace.
Yeah.
I think that should be mandatory for every new hire in logistics, at least for a month. That's just
you've got to. It doesn't really matter how you do it, but at some point, you have to learn basically how to weed through the bullshit. You've got to figure out, because I have never encountered any group of people that has more excuses that are more ridiculous than truck drivers. And you've got to, and the best way to learn if someone is being serious or if they actually have an issue is by track and trace, because you call, and by track and trace, for those who don't know, when you have a shipment, it has a pickup time, it has a delivery time, and then most, if not all, customers now want to know a progress report, an ETA. Are they tracking to deliver on time? If not, why? And so the track and trace is basically your entry-level position where you're going to call them and check on their progress of the delivery on time. And that gets you comfortable on the phone. That gets you, and something that other people don't talk about is accents. So you have to learn. So in the logistics industry, you also get exposed to all different types of cultures and cultural norms and accents. And
makes the world small again.
It does. It makes the world very small. And so you learn how to. It's a lot easier when you have some experience talking to somebody from Eastern Europe or a Punjabi, the Sikhs from Northern India, anybody when you've had those conversations a couple times and you've talked to them. You start to learn. It becomes easier to understand. You can also tell whether or not they're bullshitting you or not. Yep. And all that comes from track and trace. Gets you comfortable on the phone. It gets you comfortable asking hard questions. I mean, so I agree 100%.
Yeah, and I just don't think a lot of people they feel like how do I say this without coming across? So I feel like companies feel like they're wasting their time if they do that. Maybe it's like, well, if we're hiring these people to do a certain thing, why would we teach them that? It's just going to waste our time. And I get that to a certain degree. Like, let's get them, because we're doing a whole training program right now. We just brought in a group of 4, 2 that have been doing it for a while, but the other 2, brand new to logistics. And
well, that's the best place to start. And so, Repower, we're doing the same thing. We have some entry level people that we're looking for, and we have some people that have experience that we're looking for. And one of our team members, Lauren, she has experience. She was a corporate training manager for Coyote for, 4 or 5 years. I think she worked at RTI for a while. And she has a process, and she's done it a lot. And she loves the idea of someone who is green. She loves the idea of just being able to be like, okay, no matter what this is how we want you to do it. And so I think that takes a special type of person to know. So kudos to you, Lauren. Thank you. But it is. You start at the bottom. And it's not even the bottom, because it's an integral spot to get your feet wet.
Maybe the most important aspect to the game.
Absolutely. It doesn't matter if your track and trace isn't on point, then it's going to go all the way up the food chain to where the salesperson's getting a call, or if you're at a company, it's the president or it's somebody else, because the data is the most important part. And if you don't have the data integrity, everything else is just noise.
Yeah. And the customers will say this, like, it doesn't matter if you did 99 correct. Like, I'm not going to pat you on the butt every time a load shows up and delivers on time because you gave us good communication. But where's this load at? We haven't heard about this load in 2 days, and that just happens to be the load that's late.
Of course.
Because that's the game, right? Like, we just want to kind of let it slide by, and maybe they won't notice, and it delivers. Well, guess what, guys? The customer notices. Whether the customer asks about it or says something or mentions it or is passive about it, whatever it is, they know. They know that it was late. They know you didn't tell them that it was going to be late.
Yep.
And they're cool with it because maybe you've done a good job in the past, but
you need to tell
them. They know. You need to tell them. And people don't want to do it because it's the easiest thing to do. It's like brushing your teeth every morning. It's just like, ugh.
I can remember when I was cutting my teeth, and I just started doing this reefer business out of California. And for those who don't know, reefer is refrigerated, temperature-controlled freight. And, my partner Brad and I at the time and our team, we had this group of about 10 to 15 carriers that we recycled these guys. Yeah. We built their fleets. I worked with one fleet that started with 12 trucks. I went and saw them the other weekend. They're named Almond Truck Lines out of Tracy, California. They're now up to like over 400 trucks.
Wow.
And like being there, seeing them grow, They're doing great stuff. They have a great team. But, you know, when I was working with those guys and other guys, you know, I would tell them, all right, look, don't bullshit me. Like, if a driver fell asleep, if you got a ticket, tell me and let me worry about how to handle the customer. I don't need you to tell me bullshit and then I pass that bullshit along and they know it's not true. It makes me look like an asshole and it makes you look bad.
Right.
So, and I think that's part of that relationship that you can start with track and trace. Where you're like, look, just tell me where you are. I'm not here to yell at you. Whoever's your carrier rep or whoever the salesperson is, they're going to call and talk to you about this. I just need to know where it's at. Don't lie to me.
Sure.
I'm just a messenger.
Yeah, you know, you're just literally calling, hey, man, where you at? What's going on? And they get so mad sometimes. So now there's, you know, 30 different ways to track without having to actually call and talk to somebody, and they can't even press the button to accept the tracking. Goodness. And then the customer is like, hey, why can't you press the button to accept the tracking? It's like, I literally, like, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to go drive and get in the seat and press the button for him? I can't.
Oh,
you know?
man.
And no, I guess that's one benefit to, because you know what? That's what I want to talk about. That's how I get to points. I ramble till I get to a point.
All right, hit me.
Assets versus brokerage. Okay. You've been on both sides.
I have.
Okay. What's better?
Ooh. So for contracted business that is one pick, one drop, I like assets. And the reason, so full disclosure, when I think about this, I'm thinking about long haul 2,500 mile type shipments. That's where my background is.
Okay.
And when I think about live, and I think about brokerage. When I think about drop trailer, I think about assets, and I think it has to do with the efficiency and the speed of which you can get reliable information, and you can get that information to the customer. So if you have assets, and you have a drop trailer, and you effectively and efficiently track those assets and utilize them, you can get a lot more done with less drivers and less trucks. Mm-hmm. All right. Now, if you have one pick, one drop live loads, and you build a solid broker mentality and a solid broker network of carriers, you can make a lot happen. You can flex. You can basically utilize those same 10 or 15 carriers to build an entire book of business, because you start with if you have one customer, like I had Walmart, and we were doing, I don't know, started out with 15 to 20 loads a week coming out of the West Coast, and then ended up getting up over 100, 150, 200. And when your carriers, they know that they're getting the freight, you establish a good relationship price-wise where it's, you know, all right, in the summer I'm going to go up, and these are old numbers, all right? These are old numbers, so don't kill me here. But I'll go up $200 in the peak season in the summertime for produce. But then in the Q4, Q2, you got to come off, you know, $400, and then we have our mean, which is like the other. And you do kind of quarterly rates with them. When you do that, and you understand that this is their livelihood, and they need their loads, and you build that relationship, then you can start building their backhauls. Then you can start building your other customers as their fleets grow and saying, hey, I've got 10 trucks a day in Salinas, California. What else do you need? And you can really build a neat little empire if you have some really good freight and really good carriers on the broker side. But the drop and hook on the broker side is very tough, because it is hard for a power-only carrier to stay in business. It is. It's really expensive for them with fuel being so volatile, and it's really hard for them to get good-paying loads that doesn't have their equipment. And so it's very important that if you're going to run freight, that you can source and find equipment to be able to help you.
It's funny that you're here, huh?
Weird.
Funny that you're here. So Repower.
Yes.
Repower is the solution to the problem you just presented.
Well, you know, not to say you didn't tee it up, but Repower is definitely a tool in the toolbox for the industry that can help. But the way I explain Repower to people is it's like Airbnb and U-Haul had a baby. And so Repower's goal is to create visibility and drive efficiency in the supply chain, basically by creating a digital chain of custody for asset owners that may have idle equipment, or for whatever reason, maybe their power-only network, the Hunt 360s of the world, or the other, you know, a lot of these fleets are building out their power-only network. They can't get trailers right now, but that's nothing new. But Repower is a digital means of tracking your equipment, of knowing where it is, and if it's idle, putting it to work for you, because anybody who works in logistics knows if the wheels aren't turning, you're not making any money.
Sure. So here's a random question. Say I own a trailer.
Correct.
And I'm doing nothing with the trailer, and I don't want to do anything with the trailer. If Repower reached out to me and was like, hey, can I have your trailer? Would I lease the trailer to Repower to lease the trailers out?
No. So what Repower does is we're technically just a website and an interface that basically can connect you with someone who wants your trailer that you would not normally be able to find. And so the way Repower operates is we basically are just playing matchmaker. We're acting as just a medium for which people who have idle equipment or people who need equipment, they can go and search. If you can go on repower.com right now, and we probably have 25 or 30 different locations around the country that have trailers for rent. And some of them are for rent for 30 days at a time. Some of them are rent for 6 months or a year. But 12 Point was one of my customers at Transport Enterprise Leasing before I left to join Repower. And I know I was talking to Jake, and I was like, hey, where are those tail trailers at? And he's like, I don't know, they're sitting somewhere. And I was like, if you don't call me, we need to put those to work for you. And so that's how a lot of these conversations go is, if you have trailers that are either idle or they're being held hostage by a shipper where you have some ridiculous trailer pool that you're supposed to maintain, but
Home Depot,
Walmart, Amazon, whatever. And well, Amazon's a little different. They'll give someone else your trailer, but
send it to Puerto Rico.
Yeah, send it to. It's not going to Russia, but anyway. But it's when these shippers have these trailers and they just sit there. I mean, it's trailers sitting there for 50 days because it needs to be part of a trailer pool, but it's not working. Well, it's just really hard to track that. And so Repower is really out here to try to bring some visibility to large asset fleets, to leasing companies. We're working on building what's called the Universal Trailer Network, okay? And it's designed to operate very similar to how the railroad operates, where you can have real-time visibility to idle equipment and get it moving, whether it's with your power or without your power, and it needs to go one place to another. So we've had a lot of success helping large enterprise fleets reposition trailer pools. Say they have a customer in Los Angeles, and that contract ends, and it didn't get renewed. Well, now you got a trailer pool of 25 trailers. Are you going to take 25 of your trucks and your drivers that are getting paid, more now than they've ever been, and bobtail them? Bobtail meaning without a trailer from Dallas over there? No. Traditionally, you've been able to load those people out, which is to pay a broker or a 3PL, or to find a carrier to say, hey, I got a load for you. You can use this trailer for 5 to 7 days, and it needs to go here.
Sure.
So Repower has basically been able to generate and build out a community that will pay you for using that trailer for 30 days, and then they'll drop it where you want it. So we've had a lot of success with new builds coming out of different trailer manufacturers, and the customers who have them, they want them spotted. Instead of just coming to your customer or coming to your terminal, we can take them to your customer. So we could take them right from the graphics shop where they're getting the logos put on right to whatever Home Depot, Amazon, Walmart, or whatever your local manufacturing distribution center is, and stage them for you.
So your role over there is what, business development?
Yeah, Vice President of Business Development, which is really just a fancy word for we're going to get this thing running, and I'm going to do whatever I can do to make it happen.
Yeah, when you're in a small company, VP really don't mean anything, but it sounds cool at LinkedIn. So I'll take it. Yeah, okay. So I like this question too because I like money.
Right.
How do you get paid? Like, don't have to go too. Like, how do you make a margin at Repower?
So the best way that I can explain it is, if you and I are having a conversation because you have an idle trailer, then I will say, all right, Gunner, so based on this trailer, I will grade it. And we will grade it from a grade A to a grade D. D being like your wood wall storage trailer that's may or may not leak type situation.
Gotcha.
And an A grade trailer being something 3 years or older, newer. And I'll say, all right, based on where your trailer is and based on the amount of time you're willing to give it to us, our data says that we can generate this amount of revenue for you. And if you're comfortable with that amount of revenue, then we would tack something on top of it. And it's usually a percentage base. And it kind of depends on the market. It kind of depends on, like right now, The spot market rates are falling pretty hard. And so obviously we try to work with the asset owners to make them as much money as they can, but also we don't want to price them out of the market, right? So we try to work with our asset owners to tell them, hey, based on what we're seeing, based on trailers that we've moved out of these locations in the past 4 weeks, this is the market rate that we think you can generate for this and also based on where it's going.
Okay, so I've got a trailer in Chattanooga,
right?
And you're like, I'm like, hey man, you can use it or whatever. And you're like, yeah, cool. So we can probably take it down to like 5 different places. Is that and then we'll get it back to you? Is that
so? No. What the way it would work is you can be like, all right. So say you had a customer in Dallas, but your trailer's in Chattanooga.
Okay.
And so the way it would work is we would basically help you onboard into our website, and you go in there and we would post it just like you post a load.
Okay.
And you can
post the trailer.
You post the trailer like you post a load.
Trailers in Chattanooga.
And it needs to go to Dallas.
Okay.
And you can say, all right, I'll let you have it for 45 days, but and we do daily rates, but I want to call it, what, $25 a day? Yeah, that'd be about $750 for use of the trailer for 30 days.
Okay.
So that's just, and if it sits there for 5-6 days, then that price is probably too high, and then we'll call you and be like, hey, might want to think about bringing this down in the 6s. The market's kind of soft right here, and we'll keep working with you like that. And we the goal for Repower is to provide that connecting point so that people who have idle equipment or people who need to source equipment. So like say, okay, let's go back to the Lipsy example, right? So the Lipsy example is you're going to need trucks and trailers for hurricane season. Historically, where are you going to find trailers?
So I'll tell you what they did. Satellite, Ryder. What's the other one?
You're talking about like Extra Lease?
Extra Lease.
Milestone.
Some Milestone.
Star Leasing, Metro.
So not the last 2, but I know for a fact the first 3.
Okay.
So we literally had relationships built with them because we did FEMA every year. Hey, when FEMA comes around, we're going to need X amount of trailers. Now, Matthew told me this, and I talked to one of his buddies at another trailer leasing company, CLX or something like that. But his name was Matthew too. He said it's not like it was in 2016 when it comes to trailers. Like in 2016, hurricane hit, we go get 100 trailers from each location, send people to go grab them and take off, and they're priority to us. Now he's like, hey man, if you want a trailer, yeah, I got you, but let me know. Let me start working on it maybe in October.
Yeah.
And that's just how the market is right now.
It is, and so. Before I joined Repower, like I said, I was working with Transport Enterprise Leasing, or TEL, and I learned a lot from them. They were great. I talk about a perfect partner to teach you, okay, how do you think differently in terms of equipment versus freight? Because everything else I'd done, it was freight-based, but between my time at TFS, or the factoring company, and TEL, I learned a lot more about how the trucking business actually works and how the equipment market works. And the equipment market and the real estate market are very similar. And so to your point, there aren't many places where there's just trailers sitting around right now, unless they're at large distribution centers and those trailers belong to large asset carriers that have them there. Mm-hmm. And so in this example, we could call some of our partners, and we work with about 9 out of the 15 largest fleets in the country.
Yeah.
And we would say, hey, let's run an analysis because we have a partner like Lipsy that may need some trailers come in hurricane season, and where do you have a lot of extra trailers that you could spare for 60 to 75 days? And so we'll integrate with their Skybits or their Fleet Locator, whatever their trailer tracking software is, and we can pull where they have the most idle equipment. They can pull that too. This isn't some proprietary something, but and then we can say, so our goal is to be able to fill that need and that gap in a unique way that would allow, call it Swift, Knight Swift, largest asset everywhere.
Yeah.
And they may have 50 to 75 trailers stuck in Las Vegas that they're not in a position to move them, but people also aren't trying to rent those. There's never really been a medium for that, and so this would be a situation where if you called me and said this, then I would turn around and call one of our large asset clients and say, hey, if I needed to pull 50 trailers together that are going to pay you very well for 45 to 50 days. Where would we do that? And then we work together to try to find some unique creative solutions.
So you guys' job is to match that up, kind of put together a price that the asset owner is willing to part with trailer for X amount of days, correct?
Yes.
And then You guys are going to take that amount that he's agreed to, use that almost as the customer rate, and then go negotiate with the trucking company that needs this trailer and be like, hey, man, I got these trailers, but they're $2,800.
So it's not. So we have a set rate for short-term rentals, and we have a set rate for long-term rentals that we try to stick to. But honestly, man, like Repower's been around for about 18 months, almost 2 years, and we're really in the relationship building phase. So we're trying, the goal is that we build a product that is robust enough and that is impressive enough that these fleets can utilize it on their own, and they don't need me to help like be this middleman. And so we have a great tech team that's doing a lot of really good things for the product itself, and it operates just, there's a map, you see the trailers, but the goal is for both parties to use it independently. That's the goal. And so, but right now, yes, that's what it works like. And it's been hard, you know, for Repower and an asset sharing website that works kind of like I said, Airbnb and U-Haul, to try to get off and get its toehold in the market, in the tightest equipment market in our lifetime. It just is really a testament to the team. And I can't take credit for this. This is for Pat and Spence and AJ and the IT team that have helped get it off the ground.
Who's the owner of Repower?
So there are two gentlemen, Patrick Vizentanner and Spencer Ware, who are from Birmingham. Okay. And Spencer went to Ole Miss, Pat went to Auburn. And Spencer, they were friends. And Spencer actually worked in insurance for a while, and did commercial insurance, did trucking insurance. And then Pat worked for a couple flatbed customers out of Alabama, and they just got this bug in their ear about, like, why are all these trailers just sitting here? Like, especially Pat, when he was working, he would just be like, you know, there's just capacity everywhere, and nobody's using it. I've seen the same 6 trailers sit in this same spot for 3 months. Yeah. And so they worked, and we've had some really good backers and partners. The Brickyard guys, I don't know if you're familiar with Brickyard. It's an incubator and basically a facilitator for startups that the founders of Bellhop, the moving company, they've kind of put this together, and so
it's all out of the Lamppost group.
Yeah. Okay. And so I see Ted in our office. I see Alan, I see Very Large, I see Cam Duty.
Tell Ted I said what's up.
I definitely will.
He's a big wrestling fan.
Oh yeah, he's a great guy. His energy is infectious. And Cam and Matt Patterson and those guys, and they have, like I said, I joined in February, and but these guys, they've got just an energy, you can ask them anything, and they don't even know about logistics, but they can kind of get down to what the problem is or what the concern is, and kind of get cut through the noise. And they've just been a really awesome group to bounce ideas off of. And then the Brickyard themselves is really focused on bringing in entrepreneurs that aren't from Chattanooga. Yeah. And so, like, our team at Repower, which this is the craziest thing, we have a team of almost 13 now. Nobody's from Chattanooga, not a soul. Isn't that wild?
Really?
Really. So we have...
Except for you?
No, I'm not from here. I moved here in 2013.
Oh. Where are you from?
I was born in Florida, but I grew up in Statesboro, Georgia, and Greensboro, North Carolina.
Old Georgia Southern, eh?
Oh, yeah. My dad worked for an acute care hospital down there when I was about 8 years old. So, but yeah, I've bounced all around, and but it's... You know, they provide a really good kind of good soundboard to help guide through.
That's awesome.
So, but Pat and Spencer are they're either 30 or in their early 30s. I think I'm the oldest person who works there. I'm like 34.
Really?
Yeah.
So how'd they find you?
So they were. I was actually working with them as clients. I was leasing them flatbeds, and you know, they've kind of had a joke that they were interviewing me the whole time when I was like, stop, you're making me blush. But, you know, I really enjoyed working for Tel. I learned a lot from Tel, but Tel is a very big fish. Mm-hmm. They deal with fleets, and I had customers that had 300 and 400 trucks. Yeah. And so, you know, Repower is trying to do something a little bit different to try to service the smaller and shorter term renters, right? Like, Lipsy did some business with Tell as well that would have trailers and we could put stuff together. But Tell's business model isn't to do 6-month project leases and isn't to do someone who's got a trailer that needs to move from point A to point B.
Right.
And that's where I don't think that's really anybody's business model. I think that's why Repower is so neat. Is there are a lot of opportunities that until now there wasn't a lot of help to do, whether it be owner operators just trying to get a trailer for 30 days while theirs is in the shop, or someone trying to get a reefer because they ordered them and they're not here yet. And people get stuck in a lot of tweener situations where the market's hot, I'm going to sell my equipment, and then my new stuff's supposed to get in this day, and oh no, it's not here.
Sure.
Now I don't have this. What am I going to do? And so Repower kind of helps fill that gap.
Yeah, that's interesting, man. It's
neat.
Now, I mean, you say it, it's just like it's a no-brainer, right? Like, why wouldn't someone use that? I mean, Airbnb has completely taken over, vacation homes and renting out places and hotels. Obviously, the big hotels are going to make it, but it's hard to get a pop-up hotel in a city.
Oh,
why would you not just Airbnb it? Before that, there was VRBO that people would
Verbo. Who changed that?
Right.
That's terrible.
Yeah,
everybody. Yeah. So I can vouch for this. Pat Vizentan and I were at the Alabama Trucking Association last weekend, and it was in Point Clear, Alabama. Gorgeous facility. I've never been down there.
Yeah.
And we were late. Yes, we were late registering. We were late trying to figure out who was going to go, how many tickets, so forth and so on.
Yeah.
And a Holiday Inn was $200 a night per person.
Mm-hmm.
We found a 3-bedroom Airbnb on the water for less than that, and we were like, done. I mean, no brainer.
Right. Doesn't even make sense.
Not
And the hotels will stay vacant.
Yep.
And the Airbnbs will stay full all week, and you're going to pay for the cleaning, and you're going.
Yep.
It's a fascinating model. And people these days are not. Have you seen the model where, like, people are getting Airbnbs and then subleasing the Airbnb?
Absolutely.
That's what I'm going to become. I'm going to become the Repower of the Repower.
So have you seen now that people are buying Airbnbs with funds in their HSA account as collateral?
Really?
Yeah. The real estate stuff makes me nervous just because I feel like every time I'm on social media, somebody is trying to tell me how they own $30 million worth of real estate and they've never had to pay a dime of their own money. And I'm like, if you can do it, I'm super supportive for you. And I'm sure that there's someone out there saying, if you're going to try to share trailers, then I just don't see it, but you do it. So, to each their own. But,
yeah.
I haven't really dug into that.
Well, I did a little bit on the real estate side. So you got to find like a for sale by owner, and you have to provide them the buyer, and you pretty much work out the deal. Like you're like a real estate agent, but you're not one.
Right.
And you like work out the deal, and you get like more commission than a real estate agent would get because you work out whatever you get. And then you take that, put it on down payment on the next house, and you start like your rental empire. And then you go into multifamily homes. And then
so my mother-in-law is a real estate agent in Arkansas, and this happened to her recently. Somebody was trying to orchestrate a house deal and saying they were not a real estate agent, they were a wholesale house dealer or something to that effect, where they were trying to basically put a buyer and a for sale by owner together without being a registered real estate agent. And she was fit to be tied about this. And I mean, that's someone who's basically skirting the system, cutting you out of your own deal. Like, what do you know?
And if you have an LLC and what's the difference in that and a real estate agent?
I mean, besides God, I don't know. I mean, real estate agents are supposedly, they take classes, they learn, they're supposed to know the process more. I mean, that's like a finder's fee, like a
sure,
a bird dog fee.
Yeah.
It's like, and this is a similar situation where anybody, a referral or, I'm trying to, I got a truck out back. You bring me somebody, I'll throw you some cheddar.
Yeah.
That's one thing, but like, I don't know. That's what they're trying. That's what it seems like they're trying to do. But a real estate agent, between the process, the paperwork, everything that needs to go on, like, I don't know. But I applaud people's ingenuity to find a way to make a buck, though. It is,
dude.
The hustle is real.
I always tell people, I'm like, man, there is always an easier way.
Absolutely.
Like, the easier way might be hard on the front end, but there's always an easier way to make money than just doing it the hardest way possible.
And I wonder again if that brings us back to logistics, because much to my father's chagrin, and I'm sure most of my school teachers as well, like, we would do things and I would just be like, man, there is a more efficient way to do this. Like, this is tedious, it's long, and I have always had this just I don't know. I've just had this like this idea that you kind of get obsessed with doing it a better way, or being more efficient about the way things are being done. Like there's got to be a better way. Yep. So I feel that 110%.
But with that, so I'm like that, and I can compare it to working out. So, it's something that I've probably done the longest in my life consistently since I was 12, 13 years old. So I've done the really hard workouts. I've done powerlifting. I've done CrossFit. I've done sport function. I've done bodybuilding. Like I've done them all. And, I tried to do this band deal and try to take the easy way out and do like body weight stuff and just kind of, or intermittent fasting and, all these different tips and tricks they try to teach you on the internet. It's like, man, there's only one way to really do it, and that's work really, really hard for a long period of time.
Yeah, put in the work.
If you look at logistics, I mean, there's definitely, the right and wrong way to do things, but eventually you just got to work really, really hard and put in the time, and it's going to work out and it'll smooth out.
It's funny. I've had some conversations recently with some of my carrier partners that I've known for a long time that have started out, and they were just talking about, like, when you're trying to start a business, people will scratch and claw, and they'll find a way to get it done. And then the lessons that you learn from that are really what help you build your career or your company. As like, I remember this is how I used to do it. How can we prepare ourselves as a company or prepare our people to not have to do it that way because we were better prepared?
Sure.
I'm going to say prepare again. So I think that's part of the journey, I remember when I was in college, it's like, oh, you go to school, you get a degree, you get a job, you get a wife, you get kids, you get married. Like that's just
get a house,
pick a
fence,
dog, cat, to 1.75 children. And it took me a while to realize that, life isn't an expressway with exits that are clearly marked for you. It's kind of a windy road, and you've got to make some choices of when to pull off in certain areas that look neat, or if you just got to keep going.
Yep.
And I think that's just how people grow and how they grow at different paces as well.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And you look at the point I was making, like you got to work hard, you got to put in all the work, but at the same time, once you do that for a long time, you figure out what works.
Exactly.
Like you're saying, you be very efficient with it. You figure out what works. Guess what works every time? The basics.
Yeah.
Dude, if people would quit trying to figure out all these shortcuts and cheat codes and the easiest way is being really, really good at the basics. That comes down to the working out, life, sports, logistics, any other type of business sales. Got to know the basics before you do anything else.
And I think communication plays a big part in that too. And we talked about that earlier, where track and trace, like getting comfortable taking news that may not be the best news, but not getting an emotional reaction immediately, and then being able to relay that information to the customer and have them still like you and appreciate you. And it took me a while to get to learn this, but eventually customers will appreciate if you tell them bad news immediately.
Sure.
I mean, as quick as possible. If you can be like, hey, this truck's broken down, they've got roadside on the way, whatever, and you give them not only the bad news but a possible solution for it. That's really, as a broker, what I found was the best was like, I'm going to give you this bad news, but it's going to be a sandwich. There's going to be good news, bad news, good news, and no matter what it has to be, whether it's we're working on it or we're looking for recovery options if a truck is broken down, or this is an ETA for its back up and running again. And that was one of the things the asset side of the business really taught me was, when you're a broker and you're working with an asset, with the asset side of the business, and you're sharing an account, or you're handling overflow account, or they're on one of your customer loads, that working together about how to solve problems, it really helps you grow as a team. And that's where having the assets and having the visibility of those assets can really help, because at least at Covenant ran just a ton of teams, and a lot of their freight was time sensitive, and they ran a lot of the same lanes, I-40, I-10, I-20. And so if a truck was broken down, even if it was a broker truck and it was broken down, a Covenant truck would pick up that trailer and deliver it if it was Covenant freight. Or there had been times when Covenant trucks, I can remember specifically times where Covenant trucks were broken down in that peak part of the season, and I would have some of my broker carriers would go and grab Covenant trailers and deliver them to Final, and Covenant would grab their trailers. I mean, we had issues, I remember, where one season we were running freight for a customer up and down the I-5 on the West Coast, and Covenant trucks couldn't chain. I mean, they couldn't put chains on their drive wheels. It was safety. There was some decision made way above our heads that said no. Well, these were what they called these were loads right around Christmas time, and they had to get to their destination. It was like top priority. And so we called a customer of mine, or a carrier of mine, and they basically shuttled Covenant trailers over Shasta and the mountains at the top of California into Oregon because they could chain. Oh, and we built, I mean, it was just, and nothing makes you feel better of just being like, everyone is like trying to figure out what can we do? We're in this really bad spot. And you just work together to get something done. And that was one of the really unique situations that I was excited to see.
Yeah, that is fascinating. And I guess that all ties back into the whole Repower deal. I mean, it's just really cool that you guys are doing that.
That wasn't a Repower plug, but that's excellent.
No,
on your part.
Hey, man, listen, I got a hat. Got a nice. Hey, Ethan, there we go. Got a nice hat.
There it is.
I only got a 12-point hat. So, I mean, I appreciate that.
Perfect.
You know what I'm saying? Slacking over there, guys. Slacking on the 12-point stuff. I think we got stuff ordered, but we've been.
Oh, is it held up supply chain issues?
Probably in China. Probably out there in the ocean somewhere.
With all those 18th bagazillion ships sitting off the coast of China.
So we jumped into logistics in 2014. The market was much, much different during those times. No matter if you were on the brokerage side or the asset side. Like
Absolutely.
I remember once upon a time. Talking like I'm old. I remember once upon a time you could go, cross country for $1.80 a mile, and people were very happy about that. And teams, 205 to 215.
205, yeah, man. I can remember talking about those brokered Walmart loads. I can remember Monroe, Georgia, which is outside of Atlanta, from Salinas, in Central California on the coast. We were doing for about $1.95 to $1.99 a mile, paid out to the carrier, and that was a good rate back then. I mean, it was $5,000 almost, give or take. And then I can remember the Florida loads, the miles, the big miles. It would go down to McClenny was Jacksonville, and Arcadia was way down there. And those I mean, I remember seeing if there was $6,000 in a load, it was like, this is money.
Yep.
And and now,
I mean, coming out of Florida, if you had a bunch of money in it, you make all the money.
Oh yeah, and I mean, and now, I haven't seen board rates and rates in a while, but I've heard stories, people paying $15,000 to go across the country, team reefer loads, just crazy stuff, and I was like, man, this is bananas.
We were getting paid, and we don't have much like cross country loads, right? I mean, we're a couple years in the game, Fusion in the game. We got one really big account, and then the rest kind of scattered around. But we're kind of in one area: Midwest, Southeast, a little bit of Northeast, some West Coast, very little. But as far as like California to North Carolina, not as much as I saw like at Lipsy.
Yeah.
But I heard, well, I didn't hear. We ran these loads. We got $9,800 to go from Idaho to North Carolina.
I bet.
A couple times a week to deliver potatoes.
So, and the weird part about, and this is that logistics stuff that you learn that you would have never known, like trucks aren't in Idaho.
Yep.
Like you got to pay somebody to go up there from Denver, to come from Oregon or Seattle. And, I can remember a gentleman who taught me about the honey hole.
Mm-hmm.
And the honey holes, named Andy Van Zant. He currently works at Gulf Relay out of Mississippi.
We use them.
You know Gulf Relay?
So Gulf Relay does our Vicksburg, Mississippi to Greer, South Carolina load 3 a day, 5 days a week. Yeah.
So Andy's the COO over there. I worked with him at Covenant. When I started at Covenant in the brokerage, he was doing like a hybrid role. He was over the operations team for the assets and then the brokerage as well. And so he really had a unique perspective of how to work together, and we're all gonna work together. But Andy, when I joined Repower, he was my first call to about like, hey, check this out. What do you think? And I think I talked to him about it before I took the job, and I was like, he's been doing this like 25 years or something. I was like, Andy, you're the most asset oriented guy that I feel like I could call about this. What do you think? And he was like, I think it's great. He was like, Gulf Relay's 250 trucks. We get trailers stuck in places that we don't go, and it's really hard for us to get them back. And so he was I think he was my first customer that I had.
Really?
Yeah. And Walt Stanish, he's our contact over there, and he's great. And they're really good to work with. And but that is hilarious though that you guys work with them. And that's logistics, right? We were just talking about just how it just spreads out.
Sure.
And but no, it is. But Idaho loads were always tough. I can remember we had apple loads out of Eastern Washington for Walmart that were just they were rough to get. Trucks were rarely there, and when they were there, they had the pick of the litter. They could pick which load they wanted, and so that was always tough. But Vegas trucks. I have a friend of mine who's a family has a farm in Farmington, New Mexico, and they do pumpkins and popcorn, and they live load like 100 to 120 trucks a day.
What?
In a field. Yeah, for I guess the month of September and most of October, they do like 100 trucks a day, and they live load them with the trucks driving through the field of pumpkins. Put them on a conveyor belt, put them in the dry van.
I'm gonna need that contact.
I mean, I get it for you, but no, he's great, and we've grown up together. We were wrestling. We wrestled in middle school together.
Cool.
And grew all the way up through high school, college, and but it's another thing. Logistics touches everything. Never worked in logistics. Been friends with this guy for 20 years. Get into logistics, and I realized, oh, that's what his mother did. Like all growing up, she worked for another trucking company, and then she would take a month off during October or a month and a half and help the family business. But she worked for Epps, which was bought by, I guess, Penske a few years back in North Carolina. So she worked for them. She was like a broker, logistics coordinator for them for years, and I had no idea what she did. She always got up and was out of the house super early if we were ever hung over in their house, and I was like, where is she going? What's she doing? And she was she did that forever. And Janice, she was a stud. She taught me a lot about trucking when I first started Covenant. I called her and I was like, all right, you're the only person I know who's ever done this, so tell me what I need to know. And she was like, don't bullshit people. Don't haggle with people. Just tell them what it is. Everyone doesn't have enough time to just talk. Like, just get it out, get it booked, move on.
Yeah.
And I think that's wild.
That's my theory in sales too. Like, get to the point, ask the question, move on.
Get to the ask.
Yeah, get to the ask. Like, listen, man. Like, it doesn't matter what you say prior to asking. Hey, can we get set up as a carrier? Like, if you don't ask that question, you're never gonna know the answer.
No.
And guess what? If they say no, now you can start talking. But if they say yes, now you get to ask more questions.
So it's funny. I wasn't a big TikTok guy for a long time, and this is the last 3 months or so I've gotten into it. I love the sales objection TikToks. I love hearing, and also the grilling and the pellet grill and brisket and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I love the guys who get on there and it's like, how to handle this objection, how to handle that objection. I think, and it's also my ADD is outrageous, but like I just like hearing those things. I feel like if you hear them enough, it just seems really, it's just like repetition. It's practice. It's
sure.
Like, I heard one today that was like, how to get past the objection of, well, will you just send me an email? And it for what I can recall, it was basically like, that's fine. Absolutely. I would expect that you would need an email, but let me ask you this. If there is an issue with the information in the email, is it going to be more along the lines of the service that my company provides, or a decision that's something on your company's side that we would need to look at further? Is it me or is it you?
Right.
Type situation.
Yeah.
And then if it's something with me, is there an opportunity for us to discuss it further to make it where it could be a better fit? And any time in sales you've been told like you got to get past the first no. You've always got to push for that. And so I that stuff I just find really entertaining. And
so we do sales training every day. Not only with like learning logistics, I kind of let our operators and guys that have been doing it teach the sales guys logistics on the floor. But as far as like what we do, we teach sales. Like we have a sales training program. We pay for it. It's a university. You go on there. You literally
is it Grants University?
It is.
Uh-huh.
Have you used it?
I got one of his free books that I've read through, and I follow him. I saw his jet once. I saw it in a hangar sitting still. I did in Miami.
That's cool.
I got a picture of it. I'll pull it up for you while you tell the story.
For sure. Yeah. So we do Cardone University, and just every day, 3 sessions, about 5 to 15 minutes per session. So you're looking at 15 to 45 minutes total for your day. The questions at the end are usually 3 to 5 questions at the end, and you have to pass every single question to move on. If you fail it twice, you got to rewatch the video. So there's your incentive to that. And then I get a report of all my people of how many lessons they did that week.
Oh, nice.
What they passed, what they failed, which ones they failed, which question they failed, and all that. So then you can kind of start, okay, hey, man, you're not paying attention here. Is it because you just can't pay attention and you're not taking the test right? Or is it because you don't understand this part of closing, or you don't understand that? And it's helped me out a lot because coaching sales teaches you more about how to sell than doing sales. Like, obviously, you got to do the sales too, but coaching it makes you learn it better to almost not make you an expert, but more highly qualified, to give you more confidence when you're on the phone when you're actually selling.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. My best friend from college, we both work in corporate sales. He sells building supplies for both commercial and residential windows, trusses, doors, all this kind of stuff in outside of Baltimore, Maryland. And so he and I are always talking back and forth about like objections and customers, and like how do we get past this objection, or how do we get past this underwriter holding up our deal, like, or like what are we
right.
we go this all back and forth. And one of the things that we've struggled with is, so if you have a solid book of business as a producer and you get to the point where you're like, I'm making the money I want to make and I've got the customers, do you go into sales management, or do you just keep being an account man?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, we both have talked about it and the pros and the cons, and that is one of the conclusions that we've both came to as people who have managed salespeople and people who have been a producer is, I am on top of my game when I'm helping other people close deals and learn how to overcome objections. And it does, because there is nothing like that feeling. It's like being a kid's baseball coach, right? There is nothing after you've been hitting off the tee, just hitting off the tee, doing drill after drill after drill, and then watch them get in a game and rip a double in the gap. I mean, there is nothing. It's the same as when you've got someone you've been working with on teaching them sales tactics and tools, and they close a customer, or they get a load or a deal, and that intrinsic reward of watching them succeed is unlike anything else.
Yeah, you know, you're I definitely know what you're talking about, because, you know, as a guy that was selling and landed some good accounts and got to a point to where you know, almost couldn't sell anymore because we kind of hit our capacity of what our guys could actually do, right? You know, because we're so small. And then we start to grow, and then when we grow, it was like, okay, well, you're in this management position now. We're going to bring people in to do what you were doing, teach them what you were doing.
And you're like,
okay,
well,
you know, okay, cool. You know, obviously you can put in plans to where you're getting compensated off those people and stuff. But, you know, I'm a team-oriented guy. I never did any solo sports. So never did, like, amateur wrestling, golf. Like, I didn't do any of that. Everything I did was always team-oriented. So you wanted to do well within your team. Right. But also you wanted to bring people up. So, you know, teaching somebody that one of my linebackers, like, they kept going in the wrong gap. That's why he's not playing. He keeps going in the wrong gap. And then pulling him to the side, like, hey, man, we're not competing against each other. Like, if I'm hurt and you go on this game, you're hurting our team because you don't know what gap to go in. So I got to quit worrying about making sure you don't know what you're doing, because then I know I'll play, and start worrying about you understanding what to do more than I do, so that I know when I'm out of the game, the team's not hurting because you're coming in, you're going to do just as good, if not better. You do that in sales, and you start training people to be a better salesperson than you ever were, then you have to start selling at a higher level because you're competitive and you want to still be the best salesperson.
Absolutely.
You want to be the closer, because I think sales management is just becoming the closer.
I agree with that.
And not becoming the prospector.
I agree with that. And I think my buddy, the building supplies guy in Maryland, he worked for a company that they had basically an inside and outside salespeople. Inside people, they both did lead generation, like an SDR role, but then they also did like paperwork. Like, they helped the outside sales guy execute the orders and the deals, and it was a stepping stone role. But they helped it helped them grow and learn. But no, I agree. I think when you become a sales manager, you do become the closer. Right. And that's also something that makes you feel super good when makes you just you get so jacked up about it. When your salesperson brings you this deal and they've got a hard ass customer and they're interested, but you just can't get the yes, and you hit them with the big old 1-2, and they're like, when can we get started? And you're like, I've still got it. Yeah. It's funny because you got guys coming in, especially if they don't know logistics. Like, we got this girl that came in, Arabella, and she doesn't know. I mean, she's 20, dude, like 20 years old. Wow. Doesn't know anything about it. We gave her a shot. She I don't know if she'll tell. Okay, I'm saying anyways. So she worked for the Democratic campaign, right? Mm-hmm. As a cold caller for polling. So I figured that has to be the hardest, especially during that election. That had to be the hardest job, right?
on either side, but especially that side if you was to actually get a hold of a Republican. I'm sure they weren't nice. And, you know, I was like, if you can make, I'm like, how many calls do you make a day? Because they moved her up to Virginia or to D.C. And she was like, oh, you know, 250 to 500 calls a day. And I was like, you can make how many calls a day? It's no brainer. Like, do we sign up now?
How many people answer the phone though?
Yeah, right. So,
but still,
I was like, if you can just do that every day and it not bother you, like, I mean,
if you had a 20% answer rate, that's still talking to 50 people a day.
Right. So, okay, now if I can teach her how to go after the right people, and if I can just have you making 50 to 100 calls a day, and you're talking to 50 to 100 people, you know, if you're 100%, but you're more likely like 30 people, whatever. I mean, that's some pretty good numbers. And then if you can just get them to an appointment, I don't need you to sell necessarily. I don't need you to sell the business. I need you to sell the appointment for me to sell the business. Out the door, to the left, to the right. You'll run into it. So you go out this door, go straight to the left out that door, and then you'll walk down a hallway, go right on the hallway. Yep. So we don't have to cut. I can keep going. You can go show them if you want to, though. Yeah, it's cool. I'll ramble on. So Jake Battles in studio. Yeah, man. So he's at RePowr. He's in logistics. Now we haven't done much logistics talk on here, and that's cool. But I do touch on it from time to time, and I think it's really cool to have people come in here from logistics in town because Chattanooga is so big in logistics. You know, here recently, if you guys are following the channel, you've seen that I've been putting out a bunch of live interviews, and these live interviews are mainly with people in the business spectrum. An attorney, a transportation lawyer, the armchair attorney, Matthew Leffler. Jim Hopkins, who was the supply chain expert, the author of 31 books in supply chain. I asked this dude on the podcast season, I go, hey, man, so we've talked about supply chain now for 45 minutes. What are your hobbies? And he goes, you want to know what my hobbies are? My hobbies are my family, watching some sports, and supply chain. And I was like, okay. All right, well, you got to be all in, I guess. So that guy was all about supply chain. He's probably knows more about supply chain than I'll ever remember or I'll ever learn. He'll forget more than I'll ever learn. Yeah, so I had a warehousing group on today, the Zion Solutions Group. Shout out to those guys. It was all 4 founders of the group, and they come on and talk to me about their warehousing process. So, you know, I'm sure people at work are like, hey, man, why do you keep doing podcasts? Why don't you do some work? Dude, I've learned a lot just in a couple weeks talking to people that are in different aspects of the business. There's so much when it comes to supply chain. And once you understand more of it, you can sell it better. You can understand it better. You can relate to these shippers and these warehouses and these customers and provide real-time solutions. Like Matthew Leffler, the armchair attorney, he told me to get in touch with Repower. And I'm like, dude, I just met Jake over at this UTC freight broker thing. And he reached out to me to be on the show. So we'd already had this interview set up prior to Matthew even telling me about Repower. So we can utilize some of these services, and just the talking about sales and talking about training and talking about the systems and processes that comes along with supply chain. It's really starting to become one of those things that I get obsessed with. You know, a few months ago it was sports card. Before that, it's always been working out and all these different things. But now we're at a time to where I really do like learning as much as I can about this. And I put up on LinkedIn that my goal in this whole process is to meet as many people as I can in logistics, sales, and entrepreneurship. So pretty much high-level people, VPs, presidents, directors, and then your owners, and then just ballers are making a bunch of money in sales. So I was just fluffing some time up right there while you were going.
No, that's the LinkedIn post that I responded to when I saw it. And I was like, oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Shoot my shot. Maybe I can talk into a microphone.
Sure, and it is crazy. It's, you know, they say like copywriting is probably one of the top skills these days, is being able to convert people from text on digital media to doing what you want them to do. And what we seem to have a problem here on this show, and I don't understand why, because we do get new viewers and we do get likes and all that stuff, but like getting people to actually press the subscribe button on YouTube. Like they'll press it on TikTok, they'll watch the videos on YouTube, they'll click it on Facebook, they'll click like, they'll comment, they'll share the post, they'll do everything.
Ring the bell.
Except just click the subscribe button, man. It's fascinating to me. So
I'm a huge YouTube, like I watch YouTube more than I watch anything else besides sports.
I do too.
Oh man.
Yeah, I do too.
Hell, if you have ADD, Or if you have a small child and you have very short windows of opportunity to watch things.
And a phone.
And a phone. I mean, God. My wife hates it. I love cars. I'm a car freak. Like, I know shit about cars that no one would ever know. If they could do trivia about car shit and it was just car shit, I would knock that shit out.
All right, so this is not trivia, but what is your favorite car of all time?
Man.
And why?
God. So, excuse me. I have a very long list, but
that's like asking my favorite pro wrestlers. Give me 3 of your top.
So when I was in high school, my family had a 1968 Mustang. It was Acapulco blue with a white vinyl top. And I inherited that car after my mom passed away, and I loved that car. It had 50,000 original miles. It was a 302 car, beautiful car, just a cruiser. And after having that car, I would love to have just the very stereotypical like fastback, like Bullitt Mustang, 60s Mustang fastback.
Gone in 60 seconds type stuff.
Yeah, similar to that. There's something about old classic cars. Like until about January of last year, I had a 1974 Jeep J10 pickup truck. Had a 360 V8. It was a 3-speed stick on the floor, 4-wheel drive, manual locking hubs. It was like driving a tractor on the road. I love that car.
Yeah.
And that Jeep. And but I would have a 60s era muscle car. I would have probably some sort of Italian car, but it would be weird. I like weird cars. I like cars, and I know the Mustang is a weird answer to say if you like weird cars, but
yeah,
I would like to have some obscure Italian sports car that people wouldn't know, like some random Ferrari that a bunch of people wouldn't know about. And then I would probably, like my everyday driver, I would love to have like some master supercharged Tahoe, like some very sleeper style. Like I had a Tahoe for years. I loved that, and I would just like one to be like fast,
like a new one.
Yeah,
yeah.
God, Tahoe, $100,000 for a Tahoe. I mean, jeez, I'm just like I had a 2001 Tahoe. It was my dad's company car. It was a LT Auto Ride, which the Auto Rides had the self-leveling suspension, air suspension in all 4 corners of this thing, and this thing was trick. I think in 2000 when he got it, it was like $53,000.
Yeah,
and
so that's top of the line.
He had a company in North Carolina called Southern Coach put a TV in the back and with a VHS player, and this was before they started coming and everything, and I thought that was the coolest shit ever. But I love that, and I'll have a Tahoe again probably at some point. I mean, my family, I drove that truck. My sister drove that truck in high school. I towed a boat when I moved to Chattanooga here with that truck. I took my wife to the beach the first time in that truck before we even were engaged or married. Like we put 270-some thousand miles in that thing, and I think I replaced the front differential and a wheel bearing.
Wow.
I mean, it was a stud. But right now I drive a Kia Stinger.
Okay.
Which is a
sports car?
Yeah, it's obscure. It was weird. It was different. It's a hatchback, but it's got 380 horsepower to 0 to 60 in like 4.5 seconds.
Sneak up on you.
Yeah, but no one knows what it is. They have no idea. And mine's green. It's like a British racing green with tan interior. And I shopped for a while for this car. I was looking at all kind of sports sedans, BMW cars. They were just way out of my budget, and Mercedes and Audis and everything. And when my wife was pregnant and I was buying a car, she was like, you might as well get the one you want, because you're not going to get any vehicle that you really want till these kids go to school.
Right.
But I love cars, and it drives my wife crazy, but we'll just be driving around, be like, oh, look at that. It's like some 1970s Ferrari, and she'll have no idea what it is. Or,
right.
Oh, I would love to have some kind of lead sled, like just like an Entourage style Continental convertible, just
sure
stuff like that. It's just bizarre.
So my favorite car of all time is the 70 Dodge Charger. Mainly because when I was growing up, I was probably 9 or 10, I guess, when this came out. Fast and the Furious.
Oh, yeah.
What's the
Toretto?
What's the main car in that at the end of the movie?
Dom.
The 70 Dodge Charger.
With big blower out of the hood.
Oh yeah.
God, wouldn't you just walk?
Dude, just the way it sounds, the cam, just it almost sounds like it's turning off every time it almost stops. Like that. You can't tell me that ain't the best sound for a man. Like, what's the Tim Allen do? Like, he's always like barking. Like, that is the best sound, and that is just American muscle pulled up to a stoplight, idling, waiting to take off.
So, have you ever ridden in a Porsche? Like a relatively, well, I guess one at all would be the question.
So, no.
So, okay, I'll follow that up. Have you ever you've been in a boat, like just a boat, like a ski boat?
Yeah, like a
Sea Ray.
Like a wakeboard boat.
Yeah, well, so my buddy Hamby, the farmer, oddly enough, he had a Porsche for a while, or a Porsche. It was a 911 Carrera S or a 4S, I can't remember, but we took it to Tail of the Dragon. And I have never, and I think this is the only time I've been in one that I can recall, but I have never ridden in a weirder feeling, like when the engine's behind you and it's pushing you at like the way the car, the inertia and the way it moves and dances through the corners is unlike anything else I've ever felt in a vehicle. It's really, if you get the opportunity, get on Turo and just rent one. It is awesome.
You know, I never thought about that.
But the physics of it all are completely different. Like, the physics of your truck are bananas too, because it doesn't really have any business being as fast as it is, or the way it turns, and like the suspension, and you can just roll over stuff. But and that's what makes it fun. It's just weird and it's different, and that's how his was. You know, going through the tight turns, and there's just like something just kicking you in the ass the whole time, and just wailing, just. Wah.
But I guess also, I never even thought about this. The weight is going to be back there, so you're not going to fishtail or spin around.
No, I remember.
I never thought about that.
So this was so funny. So when I was in high school, I had a Toyota Celica, and this was like prime time Ricer years. It was a 5-speed. I had a window decal on the top. I had stickers on the side. Exhaust coming out of the back. I had A-pillar gauges. It was straight up Fast and Furious. And I took that thing to college. I'm surprised I got any dates. Anyway, and I carried all my DJ shit in the back of that thing too. So I'd like roll up to a wedding in a Fast and Furious car pulling speakers out of the back.
Then you'd get out.
Yeah, I'm just like, and I'm not a small person, so it was hilarious. But anyway, when I moved to Chattanooga, I got like a Ford Focus. I had it for a little while. After I put 250,000 miles on that Celica, I got a Focus. Had it for a little while. And then after my first peak season in logistics, I had me a little bit of money. I went to a Ford dealership, ended up buying me a Mustang. Zero money down.
There you go.
Upside down immediately. Yeah. Zero money down.
Kenny Cone sell it to you?
God, it was Mountain View. I don't remember who it was.
That's where he's at.
But it was.
That's where I sold cars.
You sold cars at Mountain View?
So my brother-in-law, he's stepbrothers with the Watson family.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. So.
What's his name?
J. Carl Raschke.
I don't know him.
He started out. He played football at UTC. That's where he met my sister in the '90s. Started selling cars at Mountain View. He was washed cars when he was at UTC in the summer. Started selling cars, became the finance manager at a very young age, and then started doing pharmaceuticals. Now he's a financial advisor, very successful. But that's where I was.
So, you know, I had such good memories with that Mustang that I had, and so this Focus that I had was a piece of shit. It had I bought it from a Ford dealership in Birmingham. My Celica was just falling apart, and I bought it, and it died on me like 3 weeks after I bought it. The transmission, it had some dual clutch transmission, and the clutches just blew out, left me stranded on the side of the road. It was just terrible. And yet I went and bought another Ford, which is hilarious. But I got this 6-speed Mustang, and it was one of these EcoBoost. It was when they first came out, the turbo 4-bangers, more in my budget, and I loved it. It was so much fun. It was white, air conditioned seats. I thought I was it, buddy.
Right.
I got that car, and I was like, I got me a good job now. I'm making a little bit of money. I'm in a new town. I'm about to go on some dates, meet some ladies. Literally met my wife 2 weeks after I bought that car.
Funny how that works.
Picked her up, and she goes, "Oh man, I can't believe your dad let you borrow his car to come take me out." And I was like, "Oh, marry me." But I had that car, and then when get back to the Porsche story, my buddy was going to come visit. We were going to take our sports cars through the mountains.
Yeah.
Well, I had just gotten a new job when I was transitioning out of operations. I'd gotten a sales gig and I thought I was going to be doing a lot more driving. And I was like, God, you can't go and sell shit in a Ford Mustang. Like, no one's going to buy from you. They're just going to be like, no way. So I went to CarMax, traded it in on a Chrysler 300. I was on my 30th birthday. Terrible call. But my buddy, He still came with his Porsche, and I took that Chrysler 300 to the Dragon and was trying to chase him in the Porsche and absolutely melted my brake rotors. It was.
Oh, no.
I'd had it like a week. Oh, it was so fun, though. But that's what I like to do. I like to go up there in the mountains and just roll windows down.
Yeah.
Turn the radio off and just listen and drive around. But, excuse me. But, yeah, the Porsche, just anything with the engine in the back is just it's completely different. It's just really,
I bet.
It's really weird.
So my first car that I bought, my first big boy purchase, I guess we say, 2014. It was June. I was just getting a steady paycheck at Lipsy. You know,
look at this.
I'm sorry, no, it's August. So I've been working there for June. So 2 months.
Right.
And I'm at a point now where I'm like, oh, it's time to gotta buy a car, right?
Yeah,
My big boy.
Yeah, big boy.
Got to buy a car. So start going car shopping. Get a Dodge Challenger. Go down to Atlanta to get it. RT, got the cloth seats. So, it's still nice, though. Still sounds good. Obviously, the first thing we do, tint the windows. And then get the exhaust fixed on it, make it sound a little better. Put the K&N in. Just the very basic.
Bolt-ons,
very basic things to get a little bit more horsepower, make it sound like it's a little meaner.
I rented one of those once. I love that. I love driving it.
$410 car payment.
Oh, yeah.
Insurance is more expensive because it's a muscle car, and I'm 23, 4 years old.
Ooh, your agent loved you, though.
Yeah. And then I'm realizing, so all the money I'm making is pretty much going into this car.
Right.
So I'm living with my parents too. So I'm balling with. I'm living with my parents.
That's what you do. Like that's when you first get a job and you're living with your parents and you're just trying to create your own life.
Yeah.
When you're 16, your car is your life. And so when you start making money and you're still living with your parents, of course you're going to get a car. I mean, I had roommates at the time, but when I moved to Chattanooga, I was 28. So I was older than like all of the people I met because I was in an entry-level logistics job with a bunch of 24-year-olds, and I was 28. I'd already had 3. I told you about this. I had my insurance gig and then my service industry gig, and I ran bars and restaurants and all this. And so when I got here, I'd already had like 3 careers, and I show up and I'm hanging out with 23-year-olds.
Sure.
And but no, I mean that's exactly what happened. I got my car that I wanted because I was making a little bit of money.
Yep.
But you learn lessons too because when it got time for me to get out of that car, it was I think my car payment on that Mustang was like $570 a month, and it was only like a $29,000 car.
So the Challenger, I think it was 29,000, zero down. I'd realized my credit was awful because I had some injuries at UTC that I thought they paid.
Right, yeah, of course.
Because their primary insurance, well, they didn't pay. They got their paperwork messed up. So I had like terrible credit coming out of college, had zero clue.
Oh,
so
man.
my brother-in-law co-signs because he goes in there with me to get it. He's like, well, I'll just co-sign for you. So he co-signs for my first car, get it, have it for a couple of years. But you always, when you get a job, I guess I was like this, you probably too, you're a car guy. Always looking on cars online, like
oh my god,
always thinking about the next car.
Facebook Marketplace is a dangerous place for me.
When I start making, as soon as I hit this money, when I get this salary, I'm gonna get this car because
that's what
this will be the payment, and you're always trying to do the math and figure it out because like that's what I want, right? So I was always doing that with the Challenger. Then I had it so long, got to a point to where, because I was also going to the bar every weekend and living my best life and paycheck to paycheck. Anyway, so which was stupid. But
gas wasn't $5 a gallon either, so
yeah, it's like $2. Yeah, it was ridiculous. So anyways, doing all that and then realizing, I'm about to pay this thing off in like a few $1,000s. I'm just going to pay it off and I'm gonna be good for it. It's cool. It's been hit. I don't really care anymore. Whatever. It gets me from point A to point B. I live that mindset. And then I do that. Boom. Let's get this thing paid off. Do it for about a year and a half. Then it's like, let's get this Raptor. Jump right back into that car payment.
So it's funny. I don't mind talking about this, but one thing that I learned is the difference between buying and leasing vehicles, and this comes from working in the leasing industry, right? So I'm not afraid to admit it. I don't care. I leased that Stinger, and I did it on purpose. And so I bought that Kia Stinger in July of 2021 in the highest market of cars ever, and I kept looking at vehicles, and used cars were crazy. And at the time, I was driving a Honda Civic. It was my wife's. And a few years back, when I got married, I traded the 300 in. We got her a Highlander. That's going to be our family. Like, we're going to have this car till the wheels fall off. And
sure.
She had a Civic at the time, so I drove that for a while. And I was just like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
Way too big. Can't do it. Even though I did love the 38 miles to the gallon in the city that thing got. But, God, it was a tin can. Great car, no problems. But when I was working for the equipment leasing company, I started really paying attention to what depreciation looks like and what your total cost of ownership is. And what it taught me was, you know, when you buy a car, and it doesn't matter if it's new or used, it's going to depreciate. It historically it goes down in value. Now 2021 was a weird time, but the only way to really get into a new vehicle without experiencing depreciation and crippling depreciation, because they are selling them for over sticker and sticking you with the bill, was to lease it. Because one, when you lease a car, at least in my experience, they give you a purchase option, a guaranteed purchase option at the end of that lease term that says the car, if you want to buy it, is going to be worth this. And you can look at it and go, okay, so if I lease this vehicle and I pay this payment for this amount of time, and you take that number, and then you look at what the purchase option is at the end of that time, and you take those number and you combine them, then you can see how much negative equity you can prevent from incurring by leasing it and just waiting and buying it out at the end. And so, like, the Kia Stinger that I got was in the mid-50s. It was top of the line for a Hyundai and Kia product, except for now they've got some other stuff. But I did a 3-year, 15,000-mile lease with like a rim package that they'll pay and tires, and then they included a $5,000 insurance for a reconditioning at the end of the lease that they'll file on Allstate, and they'll fix any dings or anything.
Yeah.
And at the end of the lease, it was going to be, if it had 45,000 miles on it, it was going to be a $25,000 car. And I said, okay, so if you take my lease payment, call it $500 a month, times a year, that's $6,000, times 3 years, that's $18,000. So I'm going to pay them $18,000, but the car is going to depreciate $30,000 in that same time frame. So if I lease it, I come out on top by $12,000 versus buying it, because then if you buy it, you're not going to get it at sticker. They're not going to give you a deal, so the depreciation is going to be even more, like $35,000, which is dumb. And so some of the people I've talked to and some people I know, they're like, oh, well, why would you lease, da-da-da? And that's why, is in a hot car market, and this is also equipment market and trucks and anything else, is when you lease, you put that financial burden on the asset owner, and then they write off that depreciation on their books, and it's a tax write-off.
Sure.
And so I learned that in the trucking business, and I took it to my personal car purchasing business. And it was just a really neat little life hack thing to learn that I was surprised that more people didn't know.
So I was always wondering why, usually people a little bit wealthier will lease things more so than buy things.
Right.
And, you hear in the middle class, you hear, which is a very large class now, a.k.a. just like everyone, and then there's the super rich.
Right.
But in the middle class, you hear like, oh, you leased that? Why didn't you don't have enough money to buy that? Like, that's kind of the perception.
Right, exactly.
That's the perception. And it's like, well, I got to buy that. But where'd that come from? And it all came from somewhere. It all came from propaganda from the banks.
Exactly.
Like, if you just work it all the way back, the banks have been selling people to buy, because who do you pay at that point?
The bank.
You bank. And what is that? A 6 to 8% annual return, which is going to be better than anything that you can get. When you talk about compound interest, it's everything everybody buys and pay in the bank.
Yes.
That's compound interest. You don't get it because now they've turned upside down the savings accounts, and it's like 0.25% savings on the compound interest or whatever.
Right.
But like the banks are getting paid.
They are getting paid. And the first time I really remember hearing this, I was watching Ballers, The Rock's show.
Love that show. Love The Rock.
And I think the very first episode, it was like, never buy a depreciating asset.
Yeah.
Like, you rent, whether it be a boat.
If it flies.
That's it. Flies.
Yeah.
What is it? Flies. Or is fat or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, you lease it. And I really was looking at the cost, and it was like, if I'd wanted to, my goal, I have a hard time thinking about paying over $500 a month for really anything.
Yeah.
But, life is life. But, when you start looking at it, more mid to top line cars, and even just like I said, a Tahoe, a nice mid tier truck.
we got a Yukon too, so yeah.
Right. But the Yukon, see, another buddy of mine was looking at a Tahoe or a Yukon, and he needed it. His family was growing, and he was just like, man, they're so expensive. And I was like, yeah, but if that's going to be your family truckster and you're going to have it for a long time, if I'm paying a lot of money, that's what I'm going to spend it on.
Sure.
Like, I'm not going to spend it on a Volvo wagon,
yeah.
right? Or a E-Class Mercedes, because those cars depreciate, and they depreciate so fast that you will be upside down unless you pay that car off, or unless you put half down or something like that crazy. But yeah, same Tahoe, like Yukon, and that's why the banks will finance these trucks and Tahoes for 7 and 8 years.
Yeah.
But do you?
Are you on a 90-month lease?
No, sure.
5.6% interest. Yeah. Okay.
So what I found out, another factoid is, you know how Chattanooga has this just Wranglers everywhere. Everyone loves Wranglers. They're crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Toyota Land Cruisers. So Toyota, when they were building the Land Cruiser and certain Lexuses, they engineered them to have a 25-year service life. They built them that way to be able to run for 25 years. Like, you could pay off a mortgage before this car is really going to, or this truck's really going to need anything.
Right.
The average lifespan of what vehicles are engineered for now is 8 years. And so Toyota continues to hold that standard for their large trucks and SUVs, which is why you see people that just swear by the Tundra or the Tacoma, and that's just that's the way they engineer them. Where, you know, nowadays if you buy a Raptor or a Tahoe, you know, I think the Tahoe is going to last a long time, and I think an F-150 will as well. But like, I don't think if you're going to buy a Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross that it's engineered to last for 15 years.
Sure, I agree with that. Which is why those cars are going to be a little bit more price friendly, because I think they know, hey, if I can get this guy to spend $40,000 every 8 years,
there you go.
You know, they'll keep doing that. When you got these other companies like you say Toyota, well, they might, the Land Cruiser, I mean, that's a $100,000 vehicle,
easy.
But if it's a 25-year vehicle, and then guess what? You look at those things from the 80s, how much they cost? They're still $30,000.
Exactly.
So I mean, you're probably making money off those things at that point.
So when I sold that old Jeep, I now have a 94 F-150. It's cherry red. It's got red interior, and it's 4x4 V8. Cruise control, AC, and I had a 93 when I was in high school for a little while. It was a family truck. I love that thing, and I bought it probably for about $8,000.
Yeah,
and I could sell it pretty much anywhere for 15 right now in like 18 months. I'm not going to unless somebody who's watching this wants to write me.
And then I'll take a 2% chat with Gunner cost.
There you go. But and you know, and that's just, I think that those type of vehicles that historically haven't been very valuable, it's just my age bracket. Like that stuff that was not cool is now cool, and then you have this generation, the Fox body Mustangs that were never cool. No one liked those, and now they're cool again.
Right.
And this is one of the cool things, and one of the most fun things I've seen about getting a little older is the stuff that I think is cool. Now a lot of people think is cool, and it's like, oh shit, now I'm in the generation that has a little bit of money, and so other people in my generation are buying this and driving the prices up.
Sure. So, and we'll kind of wrap this up, because where are we at, Ethan? How much time are we at? Anyways,
we're at 156.
Okay, so we'll start wrapping. Yeah, isn't that crazy how fast time goes?
No kidding.
2 hours at work is crazy. 2 hours here is 30 seconds. So sports cards. I don't know if you've heard or jumped in or seen the sports card market.
I've heard it a little bit. I have some buddies of mine from back in high school that got really into it during COVID, but tell me about it. I'm interested to learn.
Yeah, so I wish I would have got into it during COVID. I got into it Ethan, 6-8 months ago, roughly. So Marcus, our 6-year-old, he gets on YouTube and he watches these kids. Well, one of these kids got into sports cards or Pokemon cards.
Oh, yeah.
So his dad's into sports cards, so they had like a video where they're talking about the both. And he's trying to explain to him his sport card knowledge, but in Pokemon terms. So there's these card shows now that pop up. I guess they've always had them, but now they're very popular. Every city pretty much has a card show. There's one here this weekend at Camp Jordan.
Very nice.
But goes to this card show, and at the card shows they do Pokemon, all the other different like trading card games, and then they have the sports card shows, and they're all at the same spot. And there's big kids, little kids, everybody in between. Do these things, pieces of cardboard now. There's cards going upwards of $20 million.
I saw one of the Paul guys was like
Logan, $5 million.
The Charizard card?
Yeah.
Yeah. I had Pokemon cards when I was in middle school, and I remember like, God, I was in the 7th grade. I remember like it was yesterday, just how cool it was. If you had a holographic, oh my God.
Holographic Charizard.
Oh, man, you were swinging.
Yeah. And they weren't that difficult to find.
I mean, everybody knew somebody who had one.
Yeah.
They weren't that rare.
Right. So, and now if you have one of those cards, which I'm talking about like even just one in decent shape, that's a $10,000 to $100,000 card.
I can't wait till we're like 65 years old and Antiques Roadshow still going on, and someone just busts out a chest of Pokemon cards, and
Dude, there's a guy. So there's a guy that went. Check this out. Go to YouTube. Type in Pokemon cards. I think it's the most viewed one. It's on the History Channel. It's the pawn shop.
Gold and Silver Pawn.
The bald guys.
Rick Harrison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Pokemon guy comes in. He goes, "Hey, I think I've got a really good Pokemon collection. They're all Charizard cards. So if you want to check it out, what is it?" He goes, "Dude, I have no clue what a Pokemon is, but let me get an expert in here, and we'll see what it goes." Expert comes in. He goes, Yeah, usually I would just call BS on this, but I think you have the most expensive Charizard collection on the planet. And Rick's like, didn't need to know that. And he's like, how much do I need to pay to get these? He goes, you ain't got enough money to do that. It was going to be like $10 million for these amount of Charizard cards.
Do you watch Pawn Stars?
I've just seen clips. I mean, I've watched a few episodes in the past, but I don't watch it.
No, I don't know if it's on Netflix or one of the streaming. Those are great to fill like 15 or 20 minutes when they get rid of the commercials.
Right.
They're really, I love the weird stuff that comes in there. But yeah, the sports card market, from everything from sports to Pokemon cards. But I'm so old that they have Pokemon now that didn't exist when I was doing Pokemon.
Oh yeah.
Shit. So, but
I'm back in it. So like, well, Marcus, I started buying him Pokemon cards, and then I was like, oh, well, that's a cool card. I wonder how much this card's worth. And then here I go. Now I'm realizing on YouTube they do like breaking boxes. They're showing cards.
That's where they have the camera.
Yeah.
And they're like holding them
right
like this.
Yeah.
And they're like pulling them out.
Well, because each pack now, it's like back in the day, like in the what you call it, the junk wax era, like the 80s and 90s. So what that means is that's when cards became popular the first time.
Right.
And they overpopulated them. Like there was so many of them.
Right.
Like millions of people had a Chipper Jones rookie card.
Yeah.
So now that card's worth $100 when it really, in reality, should be thousands of dollars because it's Chipper Jones rookie card. Like but like, so you have all those. Now each pack has a special parallel version of a specific base card. So back then they didn't make special cards. Now they all make the same base cards, but there might be a blue parallel. So instead of it being a white background, it has a blue background.
Oh, that's okay.
And an orange parallel, and a red, and a gold. And now each one of these parallels only has so many in production, and they're numbered on the back. So on the back it'll say, this is a blue parallel, this is number 77 out of 299. So now you take that to eBay, and you know this card's worth money because you've got one of 299 of these.
What?
But there might be silver and golds that only have one of one. 7 of 10, that type stuff.
I'm trying to figure out which card company went out and recruited somebody from Crypto.com or something and was like, how can we drive up the value and the media surrounding this? Because, marketing does wonders, and you can do all kind of stuff, with the correct message and marketing and all that. But to find somebody to be like, how do we generate scarcity and exclusivity to drive up the value of these pieces of paper that for the last 20 years that no one has cared about.
Sure.
I don't know how Topps has stayed in business, or any card company has stayed in business over the last 20 years, and then all of a sudden, now they're going to take the Bitcoin approach where they're just like, well, there's only a finite number of this.
Well, so you got the parallel cards, and then it goes a little deeper. Then you got these things called inserts. Well, every pack is going to have an insert. That's a card that doesn't look like the rest of the cards.
Interesting.
So maybe an insert is called like the flashy footwork, and it's just a picture that really zooms in on the shoes the guys are wearing, and it's Vladimir Guerrero. I'm making that up, but like whatever.
I got it, yeah.
So, but now they're doing inserts that are numbered, and the insert will be an authentic version. So it's a thicker card. So now they've made actually bigger card sleeves too to put these cards in. It's a thicker card, and it might have a piece of LeBron James's shorts from a game. Well, think about his shorts. They're going to take that one pair of shorts. They're going to cut it up into as many pieces as they can that can go into that one card. Maybe it's 200, maybe it's 10, maybe it's 20, whatever it is. But now you've got game-worn LeBron James shorts, signed auto card. And that's probably a 1 of 200 or whatever it is. So that immediately $5,000 card.
That's I mean, God, that had to have been a young person. Like just ingenuity to generate value where there hasn't been any.
Yep. So like you go, and they have these different, I could talk about this all day because I just learned about it here recently, but I feel like I know all about it. You have hanger boxes. Hanger boxes are retail, which is what's going to be in the store, hanging on the shelves.
Right.
And then you have like sets, which you're going to get every base card. Base cards ain't worth anything though anymore. So that you spend $200 for a set. Yeah, I got the entire set, but you didn't get anything worth any money. Then you got hobby boxes. Bro, these hobby boxes are so expensive because a hobby box guarantees 2 autos. A hobby box guarantees 10 different parallels. A hobby box guarantees one authentic insert. Like they call it a break, like a find.
Do they not put any like random fancy stuff in any hobby box spec cards? Do they not ever just slip them in a hanger box?
Yes.
Sorry.
So yeah, no. So yeah, so like, you know, a hobby box guarantees you these things. A hanger box does not. But if you get something, usually it's really, really good.
Oh yeah.
But usually you're not going to. That's like getting a lottery ticket.
Right.
But the hobby box is like buying a lottery ticket. You just don't know how much the lottery ticket is.
It's like buying a roll.
You're buying a roll. You're going to win, but I don't know how much you're going to win. Are you going to get your money back? Maybe, maybe not. So I've done a couple hobby boxes.
How's it worked out for you?
You get stuff, and I could probably pay it back off and give it, but the cards are cool, so I'm just going to keep it, you know? Like, it'd be like buying a $500 card off eBay or whatever. That is how they get you.
That's how they get you.
But say, you know, some of these hobby boxes like that haven't been opened since 1996 or 97. So Kobe Bryant.
Wow.
Like a Kobe.
Is that legit, though, or are they just
they're
making
sealed.
that up?
No, sealed.
What is there just a warehouse in Long Beach that just has a bunch of cards in it that hadn't been opened?
Yeah, because that was an era where cards didn't, like, people weren't buying cards
because
so people went out of business. There was wholesaling, there was distribution, all that stuff. So there's a bunch of those random, and people back in the day thought, you know what, maybe there's a bunch of these cards, but maybe there's not going to be a bunch of these boxes. So people back in the day got smart and would keep the boxes sealed from the factory. So now to get a 96 Skybox NBA set, you know you're probably going to get a Kobe card in that set.
Do you think this is going to happen with Hot Wheels?
It's already happening.
Is it?
So
I was like, this is going to be the next thing.
In Hot Wheels, it's called the Super Treasures or the Hidden Treasure set. So every time a Target or a Walmart gets a delivery, there is a Super Treasure in that delivery.
Oh, that dock worker's getting paid off, bud.
Dude, no doubt.
No doubt.
No.
So I can actually talk on this a little bit.
Nice.
I worked electronics at the Florida Walmart, which is right next to the toy section.
Right.
Every Thursday night, I would be working the night shift, and somebody would come in. It's the same guy. He's a little bit heavy set, bald, long beard, like twisted at the end, and he would always walk up to me. And he'd just chat me up, blah, 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 blah. As soon as my boxes got delivered by the guys in the back, he'd be like, you got toy section there? And every time I'd be like, well, yeah, of course. And me and him, because it was the last 30 minutes of my shift.
Right.
I had already done everything, nothing to be done. He would ask me, hey, let's open up the Hot Wheels. We'll look through them. If I've got it, cool. If I don't got it, I'm buying it from you right here at your register. I'm like, okay. And I never understood why, but he was there every week for that specific shipment. And if a shipment wasn't in there, he would be like, well, it says on my phone that you guys have gotten the box, so it's got to be here somewhere.
I bet that guy's house is wild looking.
He told me probably one of the last couple of weeks I worked there, he was like, yeah, I've made a couple $1,000s off of a couple of cars.
I've seen somebody on social media that he carries around a bunch of Hot Wheels, and if he sees a car that he has a Hot Wheel for in his car, he will go and like put it on the windshield.
Oh yeah.
I've seen this. I think
That's cool.
I think he's a Miata guy or something.
So that game right there
Yeah.
is happening times 10 everywhere in sports cards.
I believe it.
So
what do you think's coming next?
NFT sports cards.
So Brickyard has an NFT startup company, and I'm going to be remiss because I can't remember the name of it, but I'm just now learning a little bit about NFTs. So it's fascinating.
If you just remove the word NFT, it just means collectible.
Yes.
Right? So it's for the collectible hobby. That's what I've kind of started to learn. You got Gary Vee who's trying to turn it into like the next Walt Disney, but then you have, it's just a collectible database. So Fanatics is huge. They just bought Topps, and they're huge into the NFTs, and what they're going to be releasing is, so like there's also a site called Candy, and what they do is say there's
Candy.
They want to do a Jerry Rice rookie card, like his old rookie card. They want to bring it back, but they're going to do it digital. In the first phase, there's going to be $5,000 in the first phase. That phase is going to be $50. You got to get in quick to get it, but it's just going to be a picture of him and his rookie card, kind of cartoonized. The second level, maybe there's only 2,000 of them, but it's going to be $250. But it's going to be him stepping out of his card.
Very cool.
And then the third one, there's only going to be 50 of them. They're going to be $25,000 a piece, but it's going to be him jumping out of his card, catching a pass. So then that's going to be awesome. What you have in the whatever coming in the future, Web 3.0 or whatever. I can't figure it out. It's
so I saw recently that Diplo, the EDM artist, has started releasing some sort of shareable token for his music. That if you buy a copy of the song, you can pay X amount for like an NFT or something similar where you share in the royalties of the music. Like he's basically saying, okay, I'm going to put 25% or whatever it is value of this track, that if you spend $1,500 or $5,000, you basically are like buying stock in this song, and you get to share royalties. And I was just like, that is genius. That is genius, because you're still going to maintain 80% if you wrote the song, or 75% or whatever. But I mean, yeah, I was just like,
well,
God.
And you get 25% of whatever you're willing to put out there of people advertising for you, because they want that song to blow up, because the more it blows up, the more they're going to get paid.
Exactly.
So you're paying for it's reversing multi-level marketing.
Yes.
That's all it is. And people can say pyramid scheme. Bro, there's been pyramid schemes since the beginning of time, aka that's why the pyramids are here. So everything's a pyramid scheme. There's always going to be a top, there's going to be a bottom.
Dr. Pepper was prune juice, bro.
Yeah.
Like that started, Coca-Cola was someone was like snake oil guy made Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
You know, like that's how stuff starts, and then obviously it gets better as it gets, but
sure.
Everything is a pyramid scheme until it's not.
Yeah, it is. I mean, obviously back in the day, like with the Bernie Madoffs and stuff. When you're literally just trading money to money to money to money to money, and then eventually you've hit so many different legs. It's like, oh, there's no more money to distribute, and it's not coming in, and that's a pyramid scheme.
Yeah, that's
when there's no product or service or anything materialistic.
Right.
But
multi-level marketing isn't technically.
No, dude, it's just literally it's life. It's what we've done. It's how we've gotten here.
Working up the ladder.
Yeah. So, well, hey, man. Thanks for coming by.
No, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So when we talk some logistics, but we just kind of
shot the shit,
and that's what I like to do. You know, I get to know you now. Now I feel like I actually know you when I'm talking to you, and that's really what this show's all about.
Absolutely.
I wanted to meet as many people as I possibly could. Originally, just in Chattanooga. Now, just in logistics, business, sports, anything I talk about. I want to meet you. I want to get you on here. So we'll bring some more live to you via LinkedIn on the live streams. But Jake, man, I appreciate you coming in.
No, thanks for having me.
Do you have any social medias you want to point them to, or websites for the company, or any final plugs?
Absolutely. So you can reach me at Jake at Repower. Repower is spelled REPOWR. REPOWR. Repower.com. It's free. If you have a DOT number, go in there, see what we're all about. And then we're at Repower on Instagram, and then find us on LinkedIn at Repower as well.
Cool. And hey, guys, this was episode 114. We did double duty today, but this will be coming out live Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Hey, subscribe to the channel. Please subscribe to the channel. If you're still listening, hey, go check out our short clips. Those get more views than our actual videos, which I kind of get that too. The shorts have been blowing up. I'm going to keep putting those up as much as I can. Now that I figured out how to actually clip things from the podcast myself and put them up, I'm going to be putting them up on shorts and TikTok. So is Ethan, doing it maybe a little bit more professional way. But I'm going to get some shit out there too, because I'm just going to throwing shit out and see what sticks. Appreciate it. Love you guys. We'll see you next time. I got some stuff set up already for next week, so we'll keep the live interviews going. If you have any questions, any people that I should be hitting up, let me know. I want to talk to every single person in the logistics and supply chain and entrepreneurs and in sports cards and in sports that I possibly can in the world. Hey, there's about 8 billion people out there. You can find 7 billion of them, all right? We'll see you next time. Bye.